Class is in session, hitting the books, Pub Sports Radio, Monday, November 13th. Ian Cameron and Conor Mack are with you and ready to get to another week of college football. Man, the weeks are winding down, guys. We've got 2 full weeks of college football. This week, next week, of course, the week of Thanksgiving. We're going to have lots of Friday games, a full Saturday slate as usual. But then 2 weeks from now, it's conference championship week. And then after that, it's bowl season. Like, it's unreal, again, how quickly this college football season has gone by. It's been a good one, I think, for both of us. It's been another pretty solid week last week. So we'll see if we can keep it rolling here into this week. We got Maction once again here early in the week, and we will begin with Tuesday night, Akron and Eastern Michigan. We have the Eagles, 4-point home favorites. Eastern Michigan, that is 39, the total here in this game. I don't want either side. I don't want Eastern Michigan laying points flat out. And even in their recent games, and obviously last week, they got absolutely drilled by Toledo, 43-29. They got buried by Western Michigan, 45-21 the last 2 weeks, failed to cover in both of those games. Now, normally you just bet the underdog, in Eastern Michigan games. And it started out this season that way, but they've been the dog the last 2 weeks, and they did not get the cover. This offense has had problems all year, and, the defense was actually decent earlier in the year. It looks like they've just run out of gas, and how could you blame them? I mean, the offense just doesn't move the football, and the defense is out on that field so long, and you're seeing that defense. And again, with these teams like Eastern Michigan, you lack depth when you're a middling, smaller conference team, and I think you're seeing some injuries, too, on that side of the football really hurt. So they're struggling to get stops. Problem is Akron's struggling to score, and they've got quarterback injuries as well. DJ Irons went down to injury a couple of weeks ago for this Akron team. They went to Jeff Undercuffler, who started a few games, and he really struggled to get the job done, and he actually ended up getting benched. And then it ended up being Taj Bullock getting into the game last week against Miami O. He went 2 for 6 for 20 yards passing with 23 rushing yards. So they got quarterback issues right now, this Akron team, and Joe Moorhead's going to have to figure it out here because right now this offense is absolutely in a state of disarray, especially at the quarterback position. My thought is I don't want anything to do with the side, but I get the Akron offense has struggled, but you actually look at last week, Conor, they played Miami O, okay? That's one of the better defenses in the MAC. It's one of the few teams that really plays good defense in the MAC. I think this is a huge step down. Eastern's given up 40-plus in the last 2 games. Are you telling me these teams, for as bad as they are, at times on offense can't combine to get to 39 points? I mean, I want to bet this over badly because I think for Akron, this is a step down for their offense against this defense. Eastern is a horrible defense right now. I got to think Akron can do something here offensively in this game. And meanwhile, you look at Eastern Michigan going up against Akron. This is an Akron team that, has had their issues. They've given up 27 or more in 3 of their last 5 games. I think they hung in there decently against Miami O last week, but Miami O had Avion Smith at quarterback back up for them, so not great. So I'm trying to make a case for the over. I want no case of either of these two sides right now. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, this is ugly football here between 2 teams that I really don't want to bet on at all either. One thing, if you're looking at the total, and even Akron in this game, Vivano, because I can't lay points with Eastern Michigan. They played their best football at home. I was talking about that last week, and of course they got their ass romped on the road. You already went through it, but Akron can't run the ball, and that I think Eastern Michigan's biggest problem on defense is the run. I think they almost give up 190 yards per game. So if they could run it, I think they might be in this game. And you mentioned Undercuffler. Jeez, Louise. Sorry to rag on this guy, but all the quarterbacks, it's just like even Smith, you mentioned for Miami, Ohio, they have such a great defense. I mean, he didn't do anything, threw for 50 yards. But yeah, this Eastern defense is getting pounded. Akron's defense is not very good. Maybe it does get over. I wanted to double check. The weather's not too bad, right? It's just cold here.
I want to point out, I'll put 43. It out right now so I don't have to repeat it with all the MAC games. It's going to be clear and light wind and pleasant
45
for November in the Northeast and Midwest. So it's actually going to be no weather issues at all for any of these MAC games this week.
Excellent.
So there you go. I'm making a case for the over. Why not? I mean, and sometimes I just like it when two bad teams face off. This reminds me of the over I cashed with Akron and Kent State a few weeks ago. That game went over the total. Two bad teams, and I know both of them kind of were struggling on offense, but they're finally facing a team that they could probably move the football against. So I might get there with the over, but I don't want either side in this game.
I agree. Same thing, wasn't it? Bowling Green and Kent State too.
Yeah,
that
there was
49-19. That one I thought we was too low. We were talking about that was right around 40.
Yeah,
and we got plenty.
When you're talking about a game in this conference, and I see a total of 39, I'm going to try to make a case to bet it over. And I think I'm going to do that here in this game. All right, Toledo and Bowling Green. Toledo, 10-point road favorites, 52 the total. Kind of feel like I'm tempted to just pump the brakes on betting against Toledo now as double-digit favorites. Obviously, the last 2 weeks, they've gotten it done. Buffalo as double-digit chalk. They won and covered. Last week against Eastern Michigan, they won and covered easily. Don't be fooled by the final score. Eastern Michigan got a couple of late garbage touchdowns, and they still didn't cover in that game. So Toledo, for as bad long-term as they've been as double-digit favorites, and we've talked about it a lot, they actually have covered 2 in a row. But here's the thing. Both of those were at home in the Glass Bowl in Toledo. Can they cover as double-digit favorites now on the road? You know, a little bit different here against Bowling Green. And a Bowling Green team that, you know, when you look at their record, they clinched bowl eligibility last week to get to 6-4. They're playing some decent football, 4 straight wins. They've covered 3 of the last 4. This offense the last couple of weeks is starting to hum once again with Connor Bazelak at quarterback, Tyron Keith, the great running back as well. He's been outstanding. And in terms of catching the football as well, he's been great, really, both ways, running it, catching it for this Bowling Green team. They've been very, very impressive offensively. You know, on defense, actually, they've played a lot better the recent 4-game win streak. They've given up 21 or fewer points in all 4 games: Buffalo, Akron, Ball State, and Kent State. Now, they haven't faced a Daquan Finn and explosive team offensively like Toledo during that stretch, but they are playing better on that side of the football. This is another one I would lean over with. I mean, it's hard to bet Toledo under right now. 3 straight overs. They're putting up points in bunches right now. Actually, they had played 3 unders over last week, but it's because their defense, they're scoring, 31 and 49 the last 2 weeks for this Toledo offense. So I lean over. I want to bet Bowling Green. I'm tempted by Bowling Green because now let's see Toledo cover on the road as double-digit favorites, a little different than at home. So I lean Bowling Green. They are in good form. They've won 4 in a row. They've covered 3 of those 4. I could see them hanging around in this game. So Bowling Green and over for me at this point in time. And it is worth noting, last year these teams met at Toledo. Bowling Green, a 15-point underdog, wire-to-wire cover, and a 42-35, actually outright upset victory for Bowling Green last year against Toledo. So I think Bowling Green can probably hang in this game. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, Trans, I just don't like hard alcohol anymore, man. I'm too old for it. I don't feel like shit, so I don't really drink it anymore. If we drink one liquor, like through the night, and when I was with Dutch, we just had Patron, that's cool. I could take 4 or 5 shots. But, I'm not a young gun anymore.
So what would make people think that we can just...
I enjoy beer. I'm a beer man. Yeah. So deal with it, I'm on Bowling Green here, Pavano.
Yeah.
My guy Trance always coming with the crazy question. I got to take the 10 with them here. I think everyone's a little bit high with Toledo covering the numbers against shitty teams, and they should. They're a team that haven't been able to cover the number the last couple of years, and they finally get it done. I think this is a little bit too bad. I love how Bowling Green's been playing as of late, and I like Bowling Green's defense. I think they keep him in this game. They've been pretty good as of late. Bazelak, I think, being at home, can hang in this game. And I think they can run it. It's Bowling Green's defense. They just need to kind of, and their defense is all right against the run. We just know how Toledo wants to, run and run. I know Finn had 400 yards, but that was last week against, Eastern Michigan. We already got to. It's been horrible. I think they're in this game. So it's not a lean for me. I'm on Bowling Green here.
Yeah, I mean, I might join you here because first of all, this is now Toledo going on the road, and I've seen Toledo throw up some clunkers on the road. I mean, it's one thing to beat worse teams at home, the way they did and covered. This is a better team, and now it's on the road. It's on the road, and B, it's a better team. Bowling Green is better than Buffalo. Bowling Green is better than Eastern Michigan. Toledo's last two teams that they played. So I agree. I think this is a better opponent for Toledo, and I think Bowling Green's got the goods right now based on their current form, their offense with Bazelak, their improved defense to hang in there, getting 10 points in this game. All right, next up, we've got Western Michigan, Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois, 5-point home favorites, 55 being the total here in this game. Northern Illinois, there's a lot of chatter right now about the future of their coach. Another disheartening loss last week against Ball State, which I was happy about with the points with Ball State in that game. Ball State gets the outright win, 20-17. A lot of people upset with Thomas Hammock right now. They want to send him to a hammock right now. Get him the hell out of there. Not very happy with the coaching job that he's done this year. But at the same point in time, last week the defense played okay. It's unfortunate that was not one of Rocky Lombardi's more efficient games at the quarterback spot. Couldn't finish drives with points enough. And that's now their second straight loss. They failed to cover now in 3 straight games. And now because of that loss, Northern Illinois is in a spot where they got to win out each of their last 2 games to gain bowl eligibility, sitting at 4-6. Same goes for Western Michigan. They need 2 more wins to gain bowl eligibility. But here's the difference. Western Michigan's entering this game winning 2 straight, covering 3 straight, playing some better football right now, and they're looking like a team that wants to get bowl eligible. Meanwhile, here's Northern Illinois, slumping here, struggling down the stretch. So it's kind of like 2 teams kind of going in opposite directions here late in the season. Western Michigan's starting to play a little bit better, and Northern Illinois is certainly struggling to finish games, and that's not what I want to see out of my 5-point favorite. As a team that's struggling to finish games and close them out and unable to make those key plays on either side of the football to secure victory. And that's exactly what it's been here for Northern Illinois here the last couple of weeks. So as far as this game goes, this line's creeping up, obviously. I don't get it that it's this much love right now for Northern Illinois. I like Hayden Wolf, the Old Dominion transfer at quarterback for Western Michigan. He's played well enough at that spot. The defense for Western Michigan, not great, but I find their offense, particularly the last 2 weeks, has really, really improved, and I've been impressed with what I've seen. So in my opinion here, in this game, it's taking the dog or pass. I'm interested here in the Broncos here. Western Michigan getting now 5, even some 5.5s are starting to appear, but it's mostly +5 across the board in this one. Yeah, I'm not laying 5 with Northern Illinois. I wasn't even really all that excited about laying 3 with Northern Illinois with where this number opens. So for me, it's Western Michigan +5 or nothing at all in this game. We've lost Conor Mack. We'll get him back and get his thoughts in a moment on this game. In the meantime, we'll move on to Wednesday night's action. We've got Buffalo and Miami, Ohio. We've got the Red Hawks, 9-point home favorites here, 41 being the total in this one. I mean, it's tough to really, really get behind Buffalo at this point in time. It's a team that, unfortunately, they've kind of hit the skids here down the stretch. They've lost 3 of their last 4 games, 1-3 straight up in ATS during that span. The only win in cover was against a pretty damn lousy Kent State team. That's not exactly what you want to see. Miami, look, last week, no Brett Gabbert down to Avion Smith. No problem. They won that game, although their offense wasn't crisp. It wasn't great, but Avion Smith at least didn't make too many mistakes, was able to at least put some points on the board and let this very good defense take care of the rest. But, he only had 50 passing yards. It was mostly the run game that got going for Miami last week against a very bad Akron team. So we'll see if they can have some better offensive mojo. But the thing is right now with Miami, their defense is playing so well. They are capable of covering a number like this, even though they're laying 9. And I don't know if I have enough faith here in Buffalo, particularly on the road. You look at some of these Buffalo road performances, it's been a little bit tricky to trust them. The Toledo game in particular, Kent State, they were a favorite in that game. They did win outright as a small dog against Akron, but Akron, one of the worst teams in the conference. Last year, these teams met. Buffalo actually beat Miami last year, 24-20 in that game. Miami though, the last time they hosted Buffalo in this stadium, 45-18, they crushed this Buffalo team. So this is a tough one for me. I don't know if I want to lay 9, but after the last few games here, I have a hard time running to the window to bet Buffalo either. So as of now, it's a pass for me. We've got CMAC back. First of all, CMAC, Western Michigan, Northern Illinois. What did you think of that game?
Yeah, this one, as good as I'm on Bowling Green, I'm leaning here to Western Michigan. I faded Northern Illinois the last 2 weeks. I don't know if I want to do that again here, but I just don't think they should be laying 4.5 the way they've been playing. They still have a pretty solid defense. They are at home. You mentioned both these teams fighting for a bowl game, both 4-6. If I had to, I think you have to take the points in a close one. I just don't think you should be laying points right now with Northern Illinois. Lombardi, just being Lombardi, we know who he is. He's not very good. So I lean that way. In this game, I don't think I could get with Buffalo here. And it's not that I lean to Miami, Ohio, I guess, laying the points. I don't really want to weigh doubles, in this conference a ton unless I really feel good about it. Their defense is great, and they've been great against the number, though. I have to, they're 8-2, top team this year. If you've been betting on Miami, Ohio, they've been getting the job done for you. And how is Buffalo going to score? Like, I think their team total under, the way they just can't get it in the end zone, and this Miami, Ohio defense has been very, very good. Maybe look that route, team total under Buffalo.
All right, Central Michigan, Ohio, the other game on Wednesday night in the MAC. We've got Ohio 10-point home favorites, 46 the total in this game. The Ohio Bobcats with a 20-10 road win at Buffalo. Not easy for them, but they did find a way to get the victory. Look, I don't think he's been 100% right this year, but I'll be honest, I expected in 9 games, a little bit better than 63% completions, 10 touchdowns, and 5 picks from Curtis Rourke. I'll admit it. I had huge hopes for him. And it's not that he's had a horrible season, it's just that he hasn't been nearly at the level I thought he would be. He's been okay. He's been good. He hasn't been phenomenal. And that's what I find with the Ohio offense as a whole. This offense could pile up the points last year, but you look at the last 4 games, they haven't eclipsed 20 points. 20 points has been the high water mark here for this Bobcats offense the last 4 weeks. So we'll see if they can finally top that here at home against Central Michigan. This might be the defense that they're finally able to, because Central's given up 31 and 38, in the last 2 games. They have had a real tough time, getting stops on that side of the football. We'll see if that continues here for Central Michigan in this game. They're off that 38-28 rivalry loss against Western Michigan. Jace Bauer has taken over the quarterback spot because the other guy got hurt. And Bauer, mediocre numbers, 57% completions. You can't love the ratio, 9 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. That's definitely not something you want to see. The money's come in on Ohio here in this game, 7-3. And remember the standings and the way they set up right now as well here in the MAC. If you look at the MAC standings right now, there is still an outside chance for Ohio to pass Miami, Ohio, for first in the East, but they got to win to keep any hopes alive, essentially, of winning the East and being in the MAC championship game. They are still mathematically alive, but those hopes are pretty much dashed, if they lose this game here against Central Michigan, which they shouldn't because they're a 10-point favorite. But just be aware that there is that important situation. Because they lost to Miami 30-16, they are eliminated from any hopes of being in the MAC championship game if they lose this game. So Ohio does have incentive. Central Michigan does, though, too. 5-5. They need a win for bowl eligibility. So a tricky game. I don't know if I have a strong take on this one, quite honestly. I think Ohio is definitely the better team, and I really don't trust Central Michigan's defense. So I think this could be the week Ohio gets some offense going. I might look at a team total for Ohio over in this game. I think this is the week for them. I saw some improvement against Buffalo last week from this offense, which I think should be better than it's been. I think this could be the week we see Ohio finally get into the mid-high 20s, maybe even 30s against this defense. So Ohio team total might be something I look at in this game. What do you think, C-Mac?
Yeah, I think it's Bauer, in this offense, what they can do against the Ohio defense. They've just been great all year long. Yep. They played a few more overs, but the last few games, back to playing good defense. It's like Buffalo, like we were talking about, but, like last week, the under in that game came through. Central Michigan's going to have to score because their defense is very good. Ohio should get the points. We've talked about the last couple of weeks. Just something's off with Rourke. And offensively, they haven't been great all year long. They are the better team. This is wild, though. Central Michigan's really kicked their ass the last few years, and maybe they're live here. This is one I definitely want to look at a little bit more. But with Ohio, the defense I love. I don't know about laying 10. I just don't know if I could jump on this dog in Central Michigan, but I'm going to look at it here.
All right, let's go up to Thursday night ACC action, Boston College and Pittsburgh. We've got the Pitt Panthers 2-point home favorites here, 47 being the total here in this game. The Pitt Panthers, I mean, I think the wheels have come off. I'm hearing a lot of bad stuff, Conor Mack, from what I've read, from stuff I read about people writing that follow this program. Players are fed up with Narduzzi. They didn't love that Narduzzi threw them under the bus after the Notre Dame loss and didn't take any responsibility himself. And you're seeing the players respond, and they responded with just a pathetic effort against a Syracuse team that's fallen apart. And even a Syracuse team that's crumbling down the stretch was able to just destroy this Pittsburgh team last week, 28-13. It's not good right now for the Pitt. I want no part of this Pitt team. There is no chance in hell I'm laying points with this team right now. I think there's a disconnect with the players and with Narduzzi. I don't want to say they quit on him, but you can argue maybe they have after that performance last week. I mean, that was a struggling, bad Syracuse team that, by the way, in that game, Schrader got banged up again. They had to go to Dan Villari at the quarterback spot, and they actually used him as a hybrid. He basically was a wildcat type quarterback for Syracuse in that game, and Pittsburgh couldn't stop him. And they gave up 382 rushing yards. That's quit, in my opinion. When I see a run defense give up 382 yards to a team that hasn't been able to run the football for weeks during this bad spell Syracuse was in, that tells me there is some quit in Pittsburgh's game right now. It's a bad situation. They're now, a 2-8 football team. They can't go to a bowl game. Season's over. There's no way I'm taking Pitt. So just by default here, for me, Boston College, or you don't bet this game. Pitt is a shambles right now at this point in time. And I know Boston College got roughed up by Virginia Tech 48-22 last week. Bad defense. I get it. But I can't take Pitt. And I don't know if I'm going to be running to bet BC, but they're certainly the preferred option for me. I don't want Pitt. It's just a bad shitstorm right now with that football team. What do you think here, Conor?
Shitstorm. I like that with both these teams. I mean, Boston College played a little bit better until last week. And they just jumped all over. By the way,
3-1, both straight up in ATS on the road for Boston College this year, believe it or not.
Yeah. You know what? I want to get to it. Pitt's offense, but these defense you mentioned are just, when you think of these teams in the past, I think they have solid defenses years ago, and they don't. And they've been an over team. This is 47.5. I think we get points. Pitt at home in some of these matchups I've gone through, they've just gotten over. Pitt there's one spot they play better is at home, but I can't lay even a couple points with them here too. I think you just look over in this matchup. Over.
Yeah, I would lean over too. Christian Veilleux, I think, does have potential long-term maybe for Pitt, but he's still a work in progress. Pretty raw right now at the quarterback position for them. And at least with Castellanos, they've got some offense. The Boston College side, their defense is not good. I'm not going to pretend it is, but at least with Thomas Castellanos, we have seen this offense and his ability as a dual threat to be able to room. They've got Alex Broom at running back. Jeremiah Franklin's a pretty good receiver for them. So, like I say, it's BC or nothing for me in that game on Thursday night. All right, let's go to Friday. South Florida, UTSA. We've got the Roadrunners. Meet. They're 16-point home favorites here, 67 being the total here in this game. I've had a boatload of success here with South Florida overs, but last week it finally came to a halt. Just a lot of stalled drives and failed fourth downs, and whenever you see that, your over is in trouble, and that's exactly what we saw with South Florida Temple last week. But I did have Temple plus the points in that game, and it wasn't. I expected a lot more from the Temple offense and EJ Warner. That's a bad defense they faced, and they could only score 23 points, but they did enough to get the point spread cover there in that game. So at least I got a 1-1 split from that game. UTSA, I mean, 6 straight wins for them. 4 of them, they covered the number. A nice 34-14 win against Rice last week, albeit Rice was without JT Daniels. AJ Padgett was at quarterback for them. But Frank Harris, he's been much better since he's gotten healthy and away from that injury he had earlier in the year. They've been able to run the football pretty decently. We know they've got an outstanding receiver in Josh Cephas and they've looked like a lot better offense here, UTSA, the last several weeks, looking like that well-oiled machine. I mean, they have scored at least 36 points or 34 points in all 6 games during this current win streak. So this offense is rolling right now. This is one of those games where I don't want to worry about what Brown does against UT. I mean, I lean over for sure at 67, but UTSA's defense is playing better. You know, Brown at quarterback for USF, it's more of a run-based offense that they've got going this year. And if you look at UTSA's numbers against the run, they're very good. So my worry is USF going to be able to keep pace here offensively? I'd probably want to, if I'm going to look over the full game total, I'd probably at the very least want to split it up with a team total over on UTSA, because I think they might do the bulk of the damage here. And we know the South Florida defense is garbage. I mean, they were a little bit better, I guess, last week against Temple, but you know, Temple's offense can't hold a candle to UTSA. And remember, this is a defense for South Florida that gave up 56 to Florida Atlantic, 56 to UAB, 59 to the Memphis Tigers. So for me, it would be, I would lean over. I might even like the team total, though, for the UTSA side even more. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I get it. This UTSA team finally getting it together after the problems, you know. And not only the offense, I think, looks good with Harris. I've been impressed over these last 6 games. The defense with UTSA, it's just starting to look better and better, I think, every week. Yeah, you mentioned no Daniels. That kept me off that game in the end. I think UTSA, I'd take them. But I just worry here the back door could be open. South Florida is a team that scores late. Them in like North Texas, they can hang around in games. So maybe, yeah, you look at the team total. I'm with you. I think there's points. It's just, you know, will we get over the 67?
No doubt. And not the greatest spot for UTSA to be laying the number either. They do finish up at Tulane. Big game in the AAC for them next week.
Next week. Yeah.
That's definitely something that would just concern me a little bit about laying 16 with them in this spot. All right, Pac-12. We've got Colorado and Washington State. Deion Sanders on a Friday night. Once again, we've got Washington State 4.5-point home favorites, 63.5, 64 being the total here in this game. I'll give Colorado a lot of credit. A much better effort from them, and they've actually covered 3 in a row. You know, 3-0 ATS for Deion and the Colorado Buffaloes. UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona. They lost all 3 games, but lost all of them by a narrow enough margin to cover the number. And now here they are, you know, getting 4.5. I actually think Colorado's a good look here in this game. You can't like Washington State, anything about them right now. Although their offense, Cameron Ward, and the offense has pulled a disappearing act in a lot of their games since their bye week. You know, 17 against UCLA, 6 against Arizona, 7. I don't know how that team scored only 7 against Stanford a couple weeks ago, but somehow they did. But they found their offense again. Yeah, at home. Yeah.
Jeez. Christ.
My goodness. Yeah. But at least last week they did get their offense going. Unfortunately, their defense caved in and gave up 42 points to Mendoza and that Cal offense. Look out for Cal next year. I mean, they could be a team that's ready to make a big rise maybe in that Pac-12 because they finally have an offense. But Washington State's been brutal. I agree with the move to Colorado. Colorado's not quitting. Colorado, 4-6. They're going to try for bowl eligibility. They now need 2 wins down the stretch to get it. But even with bowl eligibility, it's still an outside chance they get it because they do finish at Washington not Washington. They finish at Utah, which is going to be a very difficult game. But they're playing hard. I want to, if I'm betting teams in late November as an underdog, I want to see that you're trying. I want to see that you're competing. I want to see that, you know, you're battling right down to the wire. And I am seeing that right now from Deion in Colorado. Do they still have issues on defense? Yes, their defense is still not great. And we saw it last week. That's why they lost against Arizona. Couldn't stop Fafita and that Arizona offense with the game on the line. But I saw improvement from their O-line. Shedeur Sanders was one of his best games in a very long time at quarterback. They finally gave him some pass protection, which has been an issue this year. So I like Colorado plus the points. Probably would lean over, but I think I like the side a little bit more. I think Colorado's got a shot here in the Palouse. It's not an easy place to play Friday night in Pullman at the Palouse, but don't like what I'm seeing from Washington State. And now I'm asked to lay points with them. No, thank you. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, Colorado. I thought it was big. You know, it's still not easy to go play there. And Arizona hadn't been a favorite. We talked about it last week. Now they're laying 10. It just seemed crazy. We saw this line get hit almost to a touchdown right before kickoff, and it was close the whole way. They covered the whole game to Colorado. But now they go out on the road. I don't really trust them. But this is where a spot where I'd always trust Washington State. But, these home losses are what's the biggest head scratchers. The 44-6 and the 7-10, scoring 6 and 7. The offense just can't be found. Ward, don't know what happened to him. The defense is horrible. So, yeah, I don't even think I want to bet this game. I guess maybe I'd lean the points in this one. But still, because I think Pullman, you go there, it's just tough to play. But I can't bet Washington State. That's for sure. So it's maybe a game I just stay off.
All right, let's go to Saturday. We've got Duke and Virginia. Duke 3.5, 4-point road favorites, 48 being the total here in this one. The Duke Blue Devils, I'll tell you what, gritty effort from them last week. I worry, though, coming off that kind of game. That was a crazy game against North Carolina. Battle for the Liberty Bell, the Tobacco Road rivalry football version, 47-45 in overtime in favor of UNC. Just an outstanding display on offense from both guys. And we know Drake May and the North Carolina offense is outstanding. We know that. And since they got Tez Walker back, that offense has been very, very good for North Carolina. But I was impressed with Grayson Loftus. This is a guy, and clearly that's why Mike Elko is a great coach. He saw that Beelan kid couldn't play. He just could not throw the football with any sort of consistency or accuracy. He says, that's enough of this guy. We're going to put Grayson Loftus in there. And I thought that kid, did a nice job, a tough spot, on the road. He hasn't had much starting experience. He had, not a lot of passing numbers, but 189, 16 of 28, solid, and 3 touchdowns. And more importantly, no interceptions. None of those crippling turnovers that Beelan had when he took over for Riley Leonard, who of course is out. So good stuff from Loftus. Can he build on that here against Virginia? I should think so, just because of the fact we've got obviously a Virginia defense that we know is not one we really trust all that much. Of course, we saw Virginia last week give up 31 points in the loss to Louisville. Great effort, and it was looking dicey there for Louisville for a bit. It was a much harder game for them than I expected, and Virginia competed, so give them credit. And they lost 31-24 in that game. So good effort from them. Virginia emptied the tank against Louisville. It was one of their better efforts, certainly. Defensively, they were good for 3 quarters, and then they just had a brutal fourth quarter. Unfortunately, couldn't stop Jack Plummer in the offense. But Calandria was pretty good in that game at quarterback. The effort was solid, and this team has now covered 6 of the last 7. They're 6-1 ATS their last 7 games going into this one. And I'm not laying more than a field goal with Duke after that kind of game last week. I just can't. That kind of overtime, emotional, physical, exhausting battle. It went to overtime against their rival. This is not the spot where I'm comfortable saying, after a game like that, come on back and lay 3.5, 4 points on the road with Duke. I don't want to do that. So I would lean Virginia. Can the game get over the total? It might. Because, the Duke offense looks like with Loftus at quarterback, they can at least move the football a little bit with him, unlike Beelan. And we know the Virginia defense isn't great, but Virginia's offense, certainly capable enough to maybe put some points on the board. So probably be a Virginia and over lean for me here. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I get that. Look, I'm going to wait on the total a little bit, just go over a few things, see how the market moves on this. But I think we could get over the Virginia-Louisville game with that last touchdown with Louisville got over there. I want Virginia at home. I know Loftus came in and played well. We're seeing the old North Carolina defense of the past. They had to make a move, and that was good. I'm glad Duke did that. He might have some success, but Virginia, you look at this team, they're 2-8. They're at home here, 4-point dog. This is where I want them. Calandria was pretty good last week. He had a bad interception, but over 300 yards against the Louisville defense. I thought that it was playing better. So not only, I'm going to look at the total with the over. I got to be on the points here with Virginia.
All right. Yeah, it's a tricky spot here for Duke this week. No question. All right. Cincinnati and West Virginia as we go to the Big 12. It is West Virginia, 6.5-point home favorites, 55.5 the total. I think anything less than 7, I'd look to lay it. I think there's a difference between these two teams right now. And I know it was ugly for West Virginia last week. They ran into a red-hot Oklahoma offense. And Dylan Gabriel, man, he was just on point. He was just phenomenal last week against West Virginia. There was just no stopping him. It was one of those games where it was a split for me. Break even. We had West Virginia, which obviously they got clobbered. No shot there.
Me too.
They did go over the total, so I was happy to see that. 59-20. Can they bounce back at home? I think they're very capable of it. Remember, they beat BYU 37. For me, this is just, I don't really love what I see from Cincinnati. I'm not giving them too much credit for beating the Houston Cougars. I'm just as negative about Houston, if not more, than I am Cincinnati. Emory Jones has been okay, but not great, at the quarterback spot. And to me, the key is, look, they didn't stop Corey Kiner, Houston, in that game, and the run game just really did them in against Cincinnati. When you look at the Cincinnati team, they're a run-first offense, and certainly from a West Virginia perspective, they've got to try to shut that down. West Virginia has actually been a little bit better against the run. It's their secondary that sometimes has been picked apart. I still remember that Houston Hail Mary that beat them. That tells you all you need to know about West Virginia's secondary has been a little bit leaky. West Virginia is not West Virginia from a total perspective right now. Yeah, I'm either playing over or I'm passing the game because their offense with Garrett Green is very good, but their defense is still a little shaky. They've gone over now 4 of the last 5 games, and they have given up at least 28 points in 4 of the 5 games to everybody other than BYU. And BYU has nothing right now, essentially, on offense. And they've had all kinds of issues all year on offense, BYU. So I wouldn't even put too much stock in that defensive effort from West Virginia. So favorite and over for me in this game. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I think we could get over. West Virginia is just defense is getting shredded. But I don't really know if Emory Jones, I just don't trust him throwing the football, and I as much as I just don't want them as a dog. They've just been a stay away team for me all year. I like how West Virginia have been playing. My money's been on them. They cashed. And obviously last week, like you mentioned, I had the same thing with the points in the over. I lean their way at home here under the touchdown. I just don't know if it's a game I bet.
All right, Michigan State, Indiana. Indiana 4-point home favorites, 4.5 in some spots, 47 the total in this game. I've been riding Indiana a lot lately. Man, that game was just nuts last week against Illinois. My goodness. I mean, Indiana's racing off to that big early lead, and then Illinois comes all the way back. I think Illinois might have found a quarterback because that Ball State transfer, John Paddock, man, he looked a whole lot better than Luke Altmaier ever did for Illinois this year. So I give him credit. Maybe Brett Bielema has found his next quarterback there. Played well and led Illinois to a comeback win, although I had Indiana plus, 6.5, and they ended up getting the point spread cover. The Indiana defensive issues of early in the season reared their ugly head again yesterday. But at the same time, Sorsby, continues to play really well at quarterback, and the Hoosiers are moving the football right now. And I like the momentum. I like the fight that they've shown. I like the improvement. This is, again, you look for these teams like in Indiana that haven't had a good season, but they're still battling out there this late in the season. The problem is, the one concern I would have is now they're a favorite. Okay, that's different than taking them as a dog all these weeks. Like I've been taking Indiana against Illinois and Wisconsin. I've been on them as an underdog all these weeks. Now they're a favorite. Now they're at 3-7 after that loss, which means they can't get bowl eligible now. So I do worry about this spot for Indiana a little bit. That being said, I don't know if I can back Michigan State. I mean, that's a team that obviously last week 38-3 lost to Ohio State. They did beat Nebraska, but you look at them on the road here. They lose by 10 at Iowa, lose at Rutgers, lose by 15 at Minnesota, which is a mediocre team this year. I mean, their road efforts have been pretty pathetic. So I'd lean Indiana. I've cashed with them multiple weeks. I'm just a little more hesitant now that they're a favorite. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, that game took a lot off me back and forth. It's just right away, it was like, this is just like shootout city. Like, it's just sometimes there's those games.
No.
I do like what Paddock did. We'll get with him later with them. I like Indiana. I'm with you though, and then now we're laying 4.5. But I don't think Michigan State, can do anything. What do we get? Do we get a better Indiana defense? Because they just looked horrible. Yeah. I mean, Paddock had over 500 yards in that game. So this one right now is just a pass for me. maybe it does get over. Michigan State, their defense is all right, but they can't score. It showed last week. A lot of these games, when I went through them, they're just, that Rutgers game got over. Rutgers kind of came back late with late touchdowns because they were getting beat there, but they haven't been a great over team, but maybe this slips over.
This is a tricky one from a totals perspective because, like I say, Indiana's kind of been trending over, but Michigan State's been kind of the other way. But last year it was 39-31 with these two teams. We had a lot of points. We'll see if that carries over here to this game.
I like the offense. But Sorsby looked solid last week again.
No, they are. And look, I'm not a Rod Carey fan, but as OC, since he's taken over here mid-season for Indiana, calling plays, they've been better. I mean, and he's just one of those guys. Maybe he's a better coordinator than coach because certainly at Northern Illinois and Temple, we didn't love what we saw to Rod Carey as a head coach. But yeah, as an OC here in Indiana, he's done a nice job since he took over midseason from Walt Bell, calling plays for this offense. All right, big SEC showdown. Big one here in the SEC. Georgia and Tennessee. We've got Georgia 10-point road favorites, 59.5 the total in this game. I was kind of hoping Tennessee would look better last week against Missouri because I get the feeling now we're laying more points than with Georgia now in this game than we would have otherwise if Tennessee played a good game against Missouri, which they did not. They were totally inept, 36-7, a beatdown at the hands of the Missouri Tigers for this Tennessee team. So they fall to 7-3. They were just abysmal, and it was everything. Joe Milton wasn't great. They had no run game. I saw drop passes. The defense got sliced. They couldn't stop. This guy is something else for Missouri. This Cody Schrader, man, he is like a bowling ball, just trying to tackle that guy. He is just, he runs the fuck out of that football. He runs hard, and they could not contain him in the slightest. Tennessee last week in that game. And Brady Cook also had a very efficient game. Only 6 incomplete passes for Brady Cook in that win against Tennessee last week. So a bad game for the Vols. Now you got to try to bounce back against this Georgia team. A Georgia team, Connor, I'm telling you what, they're starting to turn it on at the right time. Look at these recent results. They destroyed Kentucky, destroyed Florida, and the big games for them, the bigger game. Vanderbilt, they kind of sleptwalk in that game, but they destroyed Kentucky, destroyed Florida. They beat Missouri. That game was a little tougher for them, but still won. They'd never really felt threatened. And then Ole Miss, they just laid a whipping on Lane Kiffin last week, 52-17. I mean, I'm not stepping in front of Georgia, and certainly not after what I saw from Tennessee last week. Don't know if I'll lay it, but it's a solid lean for me to the Georgia Bulldogs in this game. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, Georgia's just really whipped them the last 5 or 6 years. They just, this Tennessee team, even at home.
Series history, I'm looking at it now. 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread last 4 meetings, all in favor of Georgia.
Well, and the thing is, as a dog here at home, I want good quarterback play. And like we saw from Milton, and it is tough to Tennessee having that horrible game last week. You got to think they play better. But Georgia, top 10, both sides of the ball in all these categories. And all they have to be is up. I thought their schedule was soft. And there was a few games they had to get up for. Last week was huge. I thought they'd roll. They did. And I just have to lay it here with them again. I can't back Tennessee, even though, the crowd should be pumped there with everything going. I think you only look at the dogs here.
Yeah. Neyland Stadium, it'll be the Rocky Top. They'll be excited, but that team's going to have to play a lot better than they did last week against Missouri in order to get the win. And I'm seeing improvement at the quarterback spot. The one thing we're concerned about with Georgia, we know we like Kendall Milton. We know we like Dejon Edwards. They can run it. They've got receivers like Ladd McConkey and Lovett. They've got, obviously, they're all world tight end. Brock Bowers, who's going to be an absolute, he's going to be a dominant tight end at the NFL level. I'd be shocked if he's not. He's that good, Brock Bowers. They got him back from injury. The question all year, early in the year, was Carson Beck was missing some throws, struggling a bit with consistency in the passing game. Man, he's improved quite a bit. A lot. Like, you talk about most improved quarterback from the early part of the year to now, you can put Carson Beck in that department for Georgia. He's improved so much from September to now. 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He now has a 72% completion rate on the season. So Beck is finally, they were really liking Carson Beck. And early in the year, I'm like, I don't see it. I see an okay quarterback. I don't see a great quarterback, but this is now like what we saw with Stetson Bennett, where Georgia just, gives the quarterback time, works with him, and eventually he's going to get better. And Stetson Bennett, none of us loved Stetson Bennett at the beginning. And sure enough, he turned into a great quarterback for them. And we're kind of seeing that right now with Carson Beck. He has really improved quite a bit from early in the season until now here in mid-November. All right, next up, we've got Michigan and Maryland in the Big Ten. Michigan, 19-point road favorites, 51 the total in this game. I mean, the only hesitancy I would have is betting Michigan on the road after that huge game at Penn State, and a big win for them. I figured that even with the vultures circling around that program and the sign stealing nonsense that's, going on, that they were just going to say, hey, F you, us against the world mentality, come out there and once again show that James Franklin can't beat a big-time Big Ten team. He just can't. He still can't. And it happened again last week. So big win. You could tell they were emotional. Hugging the coaching staff that filled in for Harbaugh, of course, couldn't be at the game. It was just, that's clearly that win meant a lot to them. So that would be the one hesitancy here for me about laying 19 with Michigan in this spot, coming back after a game like that. That meant so much to them. And the fact that this is a sandwich spot. So they got the big Ohio State showdown to wrap up the regular season next week at the Big House. So this becomes definitely, tricky spot. But will it matter? Maryland, I know they've snapped their 4-game losing streak, beating Nebraska 13-10. Man, that was just an ugly game offensively, both sides. And I think that's been the shocking part. Last 2 weeks, Little Tua has not played as well, Tagovailoa, and the defense prior to the Nebraska game was getting ripped apart. And I don't want to put too much stock in that performance by the Maryland defense. Nebraska's got a brutal offense, a Nebraska offense that couldn't even beat Michigan State, the week before that. So that doesn't show me that Maryland's defense is back on track here. So I doubt I bet this game. I don't trust Maryland enough because they've been pretty bad lately. And I don't know if coming with after the Penn State win, pre-Ohio State showdown next week, I don't know if this is a spot I'm comfortable laying 19 with Michigan either. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, this is like the ultimate get in, get out, just be healthy for next week after that crazy emotional win. And they should be able to score at will. This Maryland defense isn't great, but they could be asleep here. But I thought to look Maryland's way, this need to be bigger. Like this needed to be near 4 touchdowns, even at home, maybe 26, 27. So I don't know. I don't know if 19 points is enough for them. So maybe, this is a game to just stay away. Michigan just gets in there and gets the win. Their defense is still excellent. And Tua is not, Michigan's defense. And Tua, always the turnovers with him.
Little Tua. Yeah.
Baby Tua. Yeah.
Baby Tua.
As Babana came up with that. Baby Tua.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not been great for him in big games against big teams.
Yeah, little Tua, baby Tua, whatever you want to call him. Talia. It's easier than saying Talia.
That's why we said it. Started saying that. That's at least what I did. Shit.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Louisville, Miami. We've got Louisville 1-point road favorites, 47.5 the total. Look, they're betting Miami here because this number's dropped a little bit from 1.5 to 1. Not me. Miami, that was their last true, empty the tank game last week against Florida State. Like, it's our rival. We kind of want to play spoiler. And then to lose that game, couldn't get a stop when they needed it. Florida State was able to run out the clock. Great effort from Miami, but they lose 27-20 last week to Florida State. And now they hung in there on defense. It's Tyler Van Dyke, obviously wasn't 100%, and they ended up eventually going to Emory Williams at quarterback last week. And they gave it their all, and they fell short. And now you're 6-4, and this is like Clemson, another Clemson case here in the ACC, where what do you have to play for now down the stretch? You're going to go to the Mayo Bowl. You're going to go to the Liberty Bowl. You're going to go to the Camping World Bowl. Again, you're going to go to some ragtag, mediocre bowl game. That's now what the season has devolved into for Miami. This is a team that Miami early in the season thought, hey, maybe we could compete for the ACC title with that red hot start they had. And now all your dreams are gone. You just emptied the tank against Florida State. I don't trust them in this spot to show up. And to be honest with you, quite frankly, Louisville's just a better team. So I don't understand the early move to Miami. I don't agree with it. Louisville for me in this game. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, this seems like this is huge for Louisville. I get why this is tight though. Like, I mean, they're 9-1, go 10-1.
They looked like they were feeling the pressure a little bit last week against Virginia. I will say that about Louisville. They did look at, like, they know the ACC championship. They can play if they control their destiny. Yeah. They can play in that game. But I hope they're a little more relaxed. But this to me is more of a, I don't want Miami after emptying the tank against FSU last week. That was their last true give it our all game. And they lost, and now I worry about where they're at.
I think the Miami defense, though, all year long, is solid. This team can hang in games. And they had to make the move to Williams. I was talking about Van Dyke. He's not right. The guy's injured. He had to be out of there. So with Williams in here, I do like it a little bit. This seems just like the trip-up spot for Louisville. I just feel it, man. So I'm leaning Miami. I got to go through this game a little bit deeper. I also lean under in this game as well.
This one, I would. The Louisville's defense was better than a lot of people think. It's been really good actually the last few weeks. So we'll see if they can keep it rolling here. So I like it. Connor kind of likes Miami here. I like Louisville. So one of us will have a winner here in this game. All right, Kentucky and South Carolina. We've got. Kentucky, a 1.5 point road favorite, 54 being the total in this one. Certainly when you look at these two teams, I mean, you talk about the epitome of middle of the pack SEC teams. That would be these two teams right now. Kentucky, after that red hot start, once that schedule toughened, I guess the Florida win was an okay win, but that's not saying much. Florida's not even a 500 team. And then after that, Georgia whipped them, Missouri whipped them, Tennessee beat them. And, of course, Alabama just crushed them, 49-21 last week. I'm really mad I didn't jump on Alabama. I leaned Alabama, but I just didn't pull the trigger there. And I said, I don't trust Kentucky against that team. And sure enough, 49-21. I don't want to lay points on the road with Kentucky. I don't. And I'll say this about South Carolina. Last few weeks, I like what I'm seeing after a little rough stretch there. Tennessee, Florida, Missouri, they lost. It was one of those losses. The Florida loss was so bad that Shane Beamer broke his foot, because he got so angry. He kicked something and he broke his foot at the end of one of those games. But the last few games, I mean, they competed with A&M. They beat Jacksonville State, and they crushed Vanderbilt. Not great teams, obviously. Well, Jacksonville State's a good team, but a little outclassed. And Vanderbilt, but what I like is they didn't just beat Vanderbilt. They destroyed them 47-6 here in this game. So I kind of lean South Carolina here. I'm not rushing to bet South Carolina, but I know I don't want to lay points with this Kentucky team right now on the road. Yeah, we should see points. I agree with that. These two teams kind of look like an over team. Kentucky's defense has collapsed down the stretch, 51 to Georgia, 38 to Missouri, 38-3 allowed to Tennessee, 49 to Bama last week. And South Carolina is more offense than defense, as well. So I certainly could make a case for this game going over the total, and I lean to the Gamecocks at home. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, because I think Kentucky can score in this game. Yeah, last week, that was just Bama lay it there. And, quarterback with an eye injury, not good. Leary, I know he played. He didn't look good. He looked his normal self. 17-31, TD a pick, 150 yards. I don't trust the guy at all. And, yeah, any good team, the Kentucky defense gets shredded. I kind of lean over, too. I was hoping this total might be a little bit lower. But I think I lean that way. And right now, to me, it's South Carolina here at home or nothing. But I don't know. I bet this.
Something to play for, too, for South Carolina. 4-6, they got to win out.
They need to win here.
And this is a winnable game for them. So I don't expect this team to roll over. I have not seen signs of that the last few weeks. This team is, you look for these teams that don't have a 500 record at this stage of the season. Are you playing hard or are you tapping out? Pitt looks like they're tapping out. South Carolina doesn't look like that way to me. They look like they're playing out the string with gusto, and that's what I'm looking to see from these teams. If I'm looking to back like a below 500 team at this stage of the season. All right, NC State, Virginia Tech. We've got Virginia Tech 3-point home favorites, 44 being the total in this game. Hokies at home have been pretty good. I'm definitely not looking to fade this team when they play here in Blacksburg. The home record has been very good for Virginia Tech all season long. Like we said earlier, drones has made all the difference in the world for this team. They're playing for bowl eligibility. Virginia Tech coming off that 48-22 beatdown over Boston College last week. Like I said, drones was just absolutely terrific. 12 for 17, 219 yards, 2 touchdown passes. They were up so much that even our old friend, no, he's not our old friend, but we treated him like a human pinata. But Grant Wells got into that game late for Virginia Tech.
And he fumbled it in the end zone.
I know.
He ripped that off.
Still couldn't help screwing up that guy. Even after he came into the game with a big lead, he still had to do something negative. He still had to have a negative play. That guy, I mean, holy shit, it just drives us crazy, this guy, all these years. Thank goodness, I think this is it. This got to be his last year in college. But Drones has made all the difference. He's been obviously that's when this team took off, Virginia Tech. That's when they got better, is when he took over at quarterback. They've won 3 of their last 5 games, or 4-2 rather, their last 6 games, 5-1 ATS their last 6 games. And at home, they've been really good. They beat Pitt, they beat Wake Forest, they beat Syracuse. They played really good on their home field. Now, NC State's playing well. This is a good NC State team right now with wins against Miami and Clemson, quality wins. Wake Forest, they beat them up 26-6. So it's not a slam dunk for me, to take Virginia Tech here. But I like Drones. I like this QB. They've been good at home. For me, I still lean Virginia Tech, but I do have some degree of respect for the nice little run that NC State's put together. And their defense is back. Their defense with a lot of losses from last year on that side of the ball, a lot of good personnel losses. They had to rebuild on defense, and early in the year, they didn't play as well on that side. They're playing well now. They have given up just 29 points in the last 3 games combined. So I'd actually lean under in this game. But for me, from a side perspective, Virginia Tech at home, I'm not going against them. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at here is Virginia Tech at home. Because one thing is, Armstrong got away with it last week. Because a bad Wake team, they just can't score. Griffiths he's out. Kern came in, he was not very good.
Well, you could argue
State,
Clemson, not a great offense this year. Miami, when Van Dyke was banged up, NC State played them. And then Wake has no offense. So, the defense has been great, but you could argue, is this maybe the best quarterback offense you played in a few weeks?
I think so, but the defense, I think, is still pretty good. I'm going to wait on the total. Initial, that's what I looked at, under in this one. But I think now NC State, they get the win against Wake on the road. But I don't want them as, again, here, even as a dog. I don't trust Armstrong at all. I think he goes a little bit back to where he was earlier in the year when he lost his job. That was all shock with Morris. We didn't even know that. So a couple of days later, that he was just,
they were. I'm out of here.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm out. I'm red shirt. It's done. So that was a little wild. So yeah, I think you look Virginia Tech here at home, and I'm going to look at the total a little bit more.
All right, good stuff. All right, next up we've got Rutgers and Penn State, Big Ten. Penn State 20.5-point home favorites, 43 being the total in this game. I mean, there's no way I'm laying it with Penn State, but do I want Rutgers? That's the question. Maybe you can take Rutgers here because for Penn State, that loss eliminates them from the Big Ten race. They had a small glimmer of hope had they beaten Michigan. They were still in the mix for it. Now they're not. And I've seen this act from Franklin before. When he loses a big game late in the season, does the team respond mentally? And I've seen them sleepwalk after a big loss or an important game that they lost. And I could see that here from Penn State. Let's not forget Indiana just recently with this Penn State team almost went to Happy Valley and beat them. It was a 9-point win for Penn State as 31-point favorite. So the last time Penn State was favored by this kind of number, they barely beat Indiana at home, 33-24. And guess what that game came after? That game against Indiana came after the last loss they had against Ohio State. So it was a hangover spot, in the doldrums, essentially, after a tough loss against Ohio State in a big game. And they were very fortunate to escape with the win straight up, let alone covering the number the very next week against Indiana. So that alone tells me maybe you can take a shot here with Rutgers. And I'll say this about Rutgers. Offense is certainly looking like it's getting worse, not better. Wimsatt just doesn't give you much throwing the ball. The run game was just non-existent against an Iowa defense, and the Penn State defense is still very good. So I do worry about where the points are going to come from for Rutgers, but I worry about where the psyche of this Penn State team is now after last week's loss, which takes them out of the hunt for the playoffs and for the Big Ten. So lean Rutgers, lean under for me here. What do you think, Connor?
I don't know. The loss was shitty, Babano, but this seems right up James Franklin next week to beat up on Rutgers. It's like they lose to Michigan, they lose to Ohio State. Perfect spot. And they've owned Rutgers. I've got to go through the last few years. Yeah, I've bet on some of these Rutgers games, and they just don't seem to get it done. Some of these are right around the number. Yeah, right around this 2021. Last week not scoring. Wimsatt, I just have struggled. It's just tough to have my money on it. The defense is still pretty good, and they've been pretty good against the number all year, both these teams. I just think they can get there with Rutgers. I think Penn State wins this. It's just, do you want to lay it here?
Yeah, I'm looking at that series history, and like I said, it's going to be a tiny bet for me if I bet Rutgers. I think the under might be worth a look here, but you're right, 55-10, 28-0, 23-7. You know what's funny about the unders in this series history? It's 9-1 to the under in the last 10 meetings. The only game that went over was last year. It was 55-10, but every other game's been like 28-0, 23-7, 27-6, 20-7, 35-6. It's been dominant to the under, except for last year.
They couldn't score last week. Rutgers didn't score.
No. Against Iowa.
120 yards. Yeah,
not good. That's not what you want to see. And Penn State's defense is right there, is every bit as good, if not even a little better than Iowa's. But at the same time, you won't see me on Penn State just because of where this game falls in the schedule. Coming off a season crushing loss because they can't win the Big Ten. It's not like it's going to be a bad season. They'll get a nice bowl game still, but not the one they were hoping for after losing to Michigan last week. All right, North Carolina and Clemson. We've got Clemson 6.5-point home favorites, 58 the total in this game. North Carolina coming off the huge win against Duke. It was a thriller last week in the battle for the victory bell. We'll see if they can roar back and play well here in this game as well against the Clemson Tigers. For North Carolina, they still have a puncher's chance for the ACC championship game. That's still a possibility for them. But when you look at their schedule, they're going to need to keep winning, and they're going to need Louisville to stumble down the stretch for that to happen. So North Carolina still has, a outside chance at the ACC championship to play for. Right now, it would be Florida State and Louisville in the ACC championship game. But right now, North Carolina still has a shot. So they got to play, every possession like, they've got that chance. Clemson, I'll give them credit. Two straight wins and covers against Notre Dame and Georgia Tech after back-to-back losses. So, I'll say this about Dabo Swinney. It could have been so easy for him to lose this team after the couple of losses they suffered. And once they fell to 4-4 at the time, but now they've won 2 in a row, 6-4. They showed some desire to beat Notre Dame. You got to imagine they are going to want to show desire to spoil North Carolina's, slim hopes to be in the ACC championship game. And it's not like I'm rushing to take North Carolina coming off that emotional game against Duke. It's tough to bring it 2 weeks in a row after a game like that, an emotional roller coaster ride. But at the same time, I'm not laying this many points with Clemson. I mean, the last couple, you took Clemson against Notre Dame. They were a dog. Georgia Tech, they outmanned them. I'm not comfortable laying 6.5 with Clemson in this spot. But at the same time, I don't think I'll be going against them either. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah. I really don't want to go against Clemson. I think to find success, the North Carolina defense is leaking oil. I think I lean over in this game. I think
Clemson's offense is coming to life. Yep. 2 overs in a row. Good point.
One thing last week, the defense of Clemson has had some stuff, but I thought they've been all right. And they got the big turnovers. Haynes King was, he had 4 picks. It was just that just ended that there. But I lean under. I think Clemson here again probably wins. This game's had some few shootouts, and Clemson's kind of really owned them. So yeah, this is a wait for me, but I lean Clemson.
I've been impressed. They don't have I didn't think they had a great receiving core, but you look at these last couple games, Cade Klubnik's playing better for Clemson. Phil Maffa and Will Shipley. Will Shipley's healthy again, running the football. And look, I've been like Bo Collins and Tyler Brown, that tight end, Jake Brenningstool. I mean, they've got definitely everything that they could have asked for from this receiving core. I give them credit for, and they've played a lot better. And you're right, this North Carolina defense, it's starting to look kind of Swiss cheese again. You know, Georgia Tech scored 46 against them, Virginia 31, Miami 31, Duke got 45 with a third-string quarterback. I mean, Loftus is third on their depth chart, you know, behind Leonard and Beelan, and he puts up 45 against them last week, almost beats them. So you're right, that North Carolina defense is looking like the old North Carolina defense again in some of these recent games. All right, Minnesota, Ohio State, Big Ten action. Ohio State, 27.5-point home favorites, 49 the top. Pass. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. Don't want to lay this many with Ohio State with the Michigan game on deck next week. But do I trust Minnesota's? Ohio State's defense is phenomenal, okay? And any sort of putrid, mediocre, below-average offense is not going to move the football, and that's what Minnesota is, below-average offense. I know Kaliakmanis, the Greek stallion, has showed some glimpses the last couple of games, but not against this defense on the road. So I actually lean under in this game. Pass for me on the side. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to get involved. We have another one, a couple of these coming up that are tough. Minnesota, what's happened? The defense has not been good as of late. I kind of look their team total under. This is right before the big game. Ohio State maybe sleepwalking early. Minnesota first half, but I haven't been able to really trust Minnesota all year long. Yeah, and this total, I wish it was a couple higher, maybe 50, but I do lean under in this game.
Yeah, we straight bets. I don't do many parlays there. Thomas Jones in the chat asking, do we bet parlays or put straight bets for the most part? I'm not a big parlay better, other than maybe the odd one where you got a couple of medium-sized favorites and you want to pare them down, but that doesn't happen for me often.
Sometimes I'll do props, like in the NFL.
Yeah, I'll do same game parlays.
And stuff like that, but all straight here.
Yeah, most of all straight bets for the most part for both of us. All right, next up we've got Illinois, Iowa. As we stay in the Big Ten here with this next matchup, it is Iowa 3.5-point home favorites. Look at this total, 30.5. I mean, we can't make these totals low enough, for these Iowa games. That total with Rutgers last week, what is it, 28? I've never in my life seen a total that low. I've seen some in the low 30s before, but that was a 28 last week with the total in that Rutgers Iowa. It actually closed 27.5, and it stayed under. It was 22-0 for Iowa as they get the shutout in that game. So, I look at this situation here as far as this Illinois Iowa game. I mean, I can't bet over. I mean, I just think, you've lost enough, haven't you? If you're saying, let's bet this over only because it's 30.5. I mean, I can't trust Iowa to do enough offensively, but their defense it's really good. And I feel bad for every player on that Iowa defense that every year we've got to struggle so much to, and they still have an 8-2 record, but we could be undefeated if we had some semblance of an offense. But the defense continues to just carry the way for them. Now, I will say this about Illinois. They've won 2 in a row, beat Minnesota, beat Maryland as a dog, beat Indiana last week. Paddock showed a huge improvement from anything we saw from Altmaier. But on the road now, can Paddock get it done? And look, he's going from that Indiana defense at home to Iowa's defense on the road. I mean, that's a big challenge for Paddock. We'll see if he's up for it. I don't know. For me, I could see Iowa winning this game by enough to cover this kind of number. Like they're only laying 3.5 because of that defense. It's been that good. And Illinois' defense is still pretty bad. There's huge discrepancy in defense between these two teams. So I could lean Iowa a little bit, but I still can't stomach laying points with Iowa, and I'm not going to. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I will be in the Big Ten championship again. Yeah, the West is horrible. I talked about that weeks ago. It's happening again. They win here. I kind of lean their way. Their defense, one thing, Paddock, we'd get to, just the monster game. And he had success at Ball State. And he had a lot of balls, though. And that he does that here. They're picked, and he is not going to look very good. And I don't think he does here at all. I have to agree. Under. I would still 30.5. Savannah. Still, I take the under here.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And look, there were a lot of contested footballs and contested throws that he threw last week as well against Indiana, and he got away with it. Not going to get away with it as much against Iowa on the road, so that's the concern. All right, Syracuse, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, 6.5-point home favorites, 53.5 the total. I laid it with Georgia Tech here. I'm not – to me, Pittsburgh is an even bigger dumpster fire than Syracuse, and that's the only reason Syracuse won last week against Pitt, as I mentioned earlier. So I don't think that's a sign of a late season surge here from this Syracuse team. Now, I know Garrett Schrader's been banged up big time, and he is, it looks like, going to be able to go in this game for the Orange, but their offense still hasn't been the same. Their defense hasn't been very good. And against any kind of offense, as long as we can trust Haynes King to throw the ball to players on his own team this week in this game, then I think they should be able to move the ball here against Syracuse, because I don't put too much stock in it. Oh, wow, Syracuse, great job against Pitt last week on defense. No, Pitt's just a shit show, just a disaster area right now. Georgia Tech, I think, can bounce back and win this game. Let's not forget, Georgia Tech had beaten Virginia and North Carolina 2 straight games before the loss to Clemson the last week. So there's been really an up and down nature to Georgia Tech. They've had some good wins. They've had some head-scratching losses. That's been the kind of year they've had. But Georgia Tech needs a win for bowl eligibility. So does Syracuse, but I just think Georgia Tech's playing harder for it than Syracuse, and they're just a better team at the moment. So Syracuse going on the road for the second straight week. I don't really trust. Actually, no, they were at 2 home games in a row. So now they're going on the road, and look at what they've done on the road, Conor. The last 3, they got destroyed in all 3 ACC road games. Virginia Tech, Florida State, North Carolina, destroyed in all 3 of them. So for me, at less than a touchdown, it's Georgia Tech. What do you think here, Conor?
I agree with you. I don't know if I bet this game. I think this seems like a slam dunk. Georgia Tech. I just have this problem with them laying points. Every time this team lays points the last few years, there's problems.
This is the one opponent I'd be willing to test it against.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. I faded Syracuse, 3 or 4 times since that Clemson game, because that's the last time I was on them, and that was awful to watch. Georgia Tech, maybe there's their team total if you don't want to lay under this touchdown. And they've been just a great over team. I think they get plenty here. Points in this game, Georgia Tech.
So what is this next game? I believe it's the Sunflower State Showdown. I think that's what they call it. Kansas and Kansas State. Next up, we've got, there it is, Kansas State, Kansas. It is K-State, rather, 7-point road favorites, 55.5 the total here in this game. And look, you better make damn sure if you're going to take Kansas that Jason Bean is okay and ready to go, because obviously Jalen Daniels has been banged up and hasn't played in weeks. Didn't play last week. Jason Bean starts again. At least with Jason Bean, they've been solid enough. They've been serviceable. They've been good on offense. But then Jason Bean, he left the game early against Texas Tech due to injury, a head injury suffered in that game. And then in came Cole Ballard at quarterback, and man, he was rough. He wasn't ready to be in a starting quarterback situation. 9 of 20, 45% passing percentage, completion percentage, 45%, an interception, no touchdowns. That game was over for Kansas last week against Texas Tech the moment Jason Bean left the game.
Hey, they did battle. Yeah. Their defense hung in there. I got to say that.
Hats off to them. They got nothing from the offense, you're right, and the defense, though, did everything they could to hang in there. I badly want to take Kansas because everyone is going to overreact and say, oh, what a horrible loss. And because I still respect the way they play at home. And you're right, even in that game, down to the 3rd-string quarterback, no quit in Lance Leipold's group, and that's coaching right there. You keep the troops going, and they battled their way back to it. They got to within 3 points. They could have won it if they put a drive together but they just never could. They lost 16-13 to Texas Tech. Right now, I'm seeing that Jason Bean is probable. So that's the good news. We don't know if Jalen Daniels will be available, but probable is what we're seeing from Jason Bean. And he's a huge upgrade from Ballard. And, of course, Daniels is an even bigger upgrade from Bean. So, but I'd take Kansas at this number if it's Bean at quarterback. And it looks like he's progressing toward playing in this game. A rivalry game. Kansas has still been good at home. Look what they've done at home. You know, they third-string quarterback they were relegated to last week. They still almost beat Texas Tech. Defense hung in there. They beat Oklahoma at home. They destroyed UCF at home. They won and covered against BYU at home, won and covered against Illinois at home. So this is a team that is 4-1 straight up in ATS at home this year, or 5-1, I should say, this Kansas team. Now you're getting a 7 with them, and I know K-State's looking really good. I mean, that team, you know, the last 5 weeks played really good football. They destroyed Texas Tech, TCU, Houston, Baylor, just crushed them 59-25. They almost beat Texas, took a very good Longhorns team to overtime. People love what they're seeing from Kansas State right now, from Will Howard, from DJ Giddens at running back, and the D's current form. I love Kansas State's current form. But if Bean plays, I think Kansas is getting too many points here. So I'm leaning Kansas right now. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, it's all on Bean. If he plays, yeah, you know, and does he go the whole game? That's just like his question mark too, with the head injury. So this is a wait and see. One thing I have to say is this matchup's always been a problem though for Kansas. You know, they've just gotten beat down. It's the little
That's
brother
true.
in this matchup. K-State's really owned them. And I like how K-State's
most of those
playing.
years it was bad Kansas. Even last year when finally we saw good Kansas, a good Kansas team, and it was still 47-27 for Kansas State. You're right. They have just owned this series, the Wildcats.
The defense, though, last year the defense was falling, but I thought the defense has hung around. You know, they made plays against Oklahoma, even last week with their quarterback out against Texas Tech. So they really need that. So, you know, until all that, it's a wait. But if he's out, I might even go on the flip here and take K-State.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Obviously, that is huge as far as to how to bet this game, the quarterback situation here for Kansas, because I don't want Kansas with Ballard, not after what I saw last week. Utah and Arizona, we moved to the Pac-12. It is Arizona 1-point home favorites, 45 the total in this one. Utah, this is a spot where I would be worried about Utah a little bit. I mean, hung in there against Washington last week. Covered the number, albeit I needed some luck. This dumbass on Washington, I'm sick of seeing that. Get your fucking ass in the end zone and make sure you score the touchdown before you drop the football. This is ridiculous. This is inexcusable. This is unacceptable behavior, unacceptable shit. If I was a head coach of Washington there, Kalen DeBoer, I'd kick his ass right off the team. I'd say, you're an absolute numbskull. You're an absolute moron. You know, you've got to be better than that. Could have cost us the football game. It's a damn good Utah team that we're playing last week in that game. And he just drops the ball. And it wasn't even close. I don't know what in his mind thought
he was hyped, though.
In the end zone already.
Yeah.
It was way before the goal line when he dropped that damn football. I couldn't believe it. Like, how stupid can you be? And irresponsible. You know, you're very fortunate they got away with that in that game, Washington. But, you know, getting back to Utah, it was a hell of an effort. Tough team to play on the road. Washington with the season they've had, but they're on the losing end of it, 35-28. You know, they got drilled by Oregon. They did beat Arizona State big time, but they've run the gauntlet, Connor. USC, Oregon, and Washington is who Utah has played 3 of the last 4 weeks. Do they have any gas left in the tank? That's my concern here, going to Tucson here to face Arizona, an Arizona team that all they do is keep winning. Now, it wasn't easy against Colorado. Well, not as good on defense they were in that game, but they still won 34-31. Jed Fish has done a phenomenal job. I'm not saying I'm betting Arizona, but I'm leaning that way. This is definitely a spot I'm a little concerned for Utah. What's left in the tank after this gauntlet schedule that they've played lately? And I like this Arizona team. Feed on offense, defense improved. I lean Arizona here. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, another road game for Utah.
Yeah.
I think this game's tight here, and I just think it's close because I like both these defenses, and I think this total's too high. I'll be on the under. I've been on a bunch of Arizona unders and a few with Utah. I think this is low scoring. I lean Arizona. They've been just so good to me all year long. They keep just winning 8-2 against the number. And last week they were, the 10-point favorite on the road. I've been mentioned, Fafita. Once he got in, this is his job. He's really good. This is finally made the year. Like Arizona beat Utah. Like I think this is our best chance with a Utah offense that isn't great. With Barnes, even though he looked all right. It depends, I guess, how you look at some of these teams and, even Washington's defense. But I think it's low scoring, so under 46 here for me, 45.5.
All right, looking at the under here, Connor, with Utah and Arizona. On we go, Oregon and Arizona State. Oregon, 22.5-point road favorites, 54 the total here in this game. Oregon, obviously, off the win against USC on Saturday night, although USC gets the little backdoor cover for those of you that maybe took USC in that game. It didn't make me very happy. I laid it with Oregon, but hey, it is what it is. And Oregon does win, though, 36-27. Now they go on the road. They face Arizona State. They've got the Civil War to wrap up the regular season against Oregon State, which won't be an easy game. Oregon State never makes it easy on Oregon. We have seen that. So that's on deck after this game. I don't know. To me, it's not a spot. I love laying 22.5 with Oregon. But I do worry about Arizona State. Look, Arizona State's competed. They battled Washington. They battled Colorado. They battled USC. They covered all of those games, Arizona State, earlier in the season. But they did get drilled by Utah. They had a big win last week against UCLA. I'll be honest, very impressive. 17-7. The defense was outstanding. Bourget was good enough at quarterback. Scatabo running the ball. But more importantly, it was their defense. And look, it benefited them that there was no Dante Moore. There was no then the other quarterback. Garbers wasn't available for UCLA either. It was down to Colin Schlee, the Kent State transfer, and he struggled. But give Arizona State credit. It was a hell of a performance. So I don't know. I guess it's a mild lean to ASU. But then, man, this Oregon team's explosive. And I can't get Arizona State allowing 55 to Utah out of my mind. If they can give up 55 to Utah, this offense for Oregon obviously is no joke. So lean Arizona State. Not sure I'll get there with a bet on it, though. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, Oregon in that game, they're dealing with some injuries too. Some of the guys in their secondary got knocked out. I got to go through that the rest of the week. With the kind of an SC took advantage of it a little bit, but man, got that back door like you were talking about in that game. No way. I'm going to take the points here with Arizona State. This is another game at home. There's rain. I forgot to mention the Arizona game. There's a bunch of rain coming through here, through Vegas and then down through Arizona in these games. I think this is too many. And they've played Oregon tough through the years. I like Arizona State's defense. You're right about blasted at Utah, but they're at home here. I think they hang around. Mildly looking at this total to the under, but I'll be on the points with Arizona State.
All right, looking at the points with Arizona State is Conor Mack in this one. All right, Oklahoma, BYU. Oklahoma, 24-point road favorites, 56.5 the total. Oklahoma are pass for me. BYU is non-backable for me right now. Not a chance do I want this BYU team at the moment. They're awful. They're hideous. I mean, Satake's got to be – I think he's probably going to be gone after this year. I mean, that's how bad it's been. I know they're 5-5. It doesn't seem like it's the end of the world, but they've been absolutely hideous here these last three games. Texas blown out, West Virginia blown out. Iowa State's not a great team by any stretch, and even Iowa State goes into BYU and just dummies them 45-13. They have zero offense. They can't run the football. They haven't been able to run the football all year. Rhett's laugh. They should call him Rhett's ass. He is ass. He's terrible. He's been awful in these two games. Rhett's laugh at quarterback for BYU. Barely 100 passing yards. They have zero run game. Defense is now getting shredded on a weekly basis. Yeah, good luck facing Oklahoma here in this game. And Oklahoma plays TCU next week. But that's not exactly what I consider a big-time look-ahead spot. So either lay it or don't play it in this game. Oklahoma minus 24, or you leave the game alone. The only way I would consider backing off that stance on Oklahoma is maybe we get Slovis back at quarterback. But even then, Slovis he's clearly better than Retzlaff. But is he good enough that he can make that much of a difference here, with a team that can't run the ball and can't stop anybody? I don't think so. So it's Oregon or nothing for me. not Oregon, Oklahoma, I should say, minus 24 or nothing for me in this one. All right, Washington and Oregon State in the Pac-12. Oregon State 1-point home favorites, 63.5 the total in this game. I'm telling you what, people keep predicting and anticipating this first loss for Washington. I mean, people are betting against Washington a lot in the betting markets lately, expecting that they're not going to be able to finish out this gauntlet, run through the table, and go undefeated this season. And we know Corvallis is a very difficult place to play. Oregon State 5-0 straight up at home this year. That's not anything surprising. This is what Oregon State does. They play very good at home. Look what they've done at home this year. 5-0 straight up, 4-1 against the spread, including wins against Utah, UCLA, and Stanford here on their home field. So there's people saying that Washington's been playing with fire week in and week out. You know, a lot of tough games, a lot of close games. We know Michael Penix Jr. and Odunze, that combination in the passing game has been phenomenal, but we know their defense has also been leaky at times throughout the course of the season, and especially in recent games, and that going to Oregon State is never a picnic, is never easy. And these two teams have played some tight games. In fact, Oregon State's covered 3 straight head-to-head against Washington. The Washington wins the last two of the last 3 years were by 6 and by 3, so very close games. And then Oregon State won here in Corvallis a couple of years ago, 27-24 against Washington. But there's, for as much as this to me is not a game I'll be betting. I'll just say that right now. I'm not going against Oregon State at home, but I respect Washington's ability to find a way to win. I know people just say they can't keep doing this. They keep finding a way. It hasn't been pretty, but there's something to it that they do keep finding a way to win. And I think that is not something I want to go against here like the markets do. Markets love Oregon State because Washington opened a favorite on the road. Now Oregon State's a 1-point home favorite. But I respect the hell out of the way Washington has found ways to win. Has it always been pretty? No. Has their defense always been good? No. But they found ways to win. I don't want to go against that. So probably nothing for me on this game, although it's a hell of a game to watch. There is no question. This should be an outstanding football game on Saturday. We got CMAC with us. First of all, CMAC, Oklahoma, BYU. What did you think of that game?
Nothing. I'm glad you had that on there. That's the whole weight with Slovis. This team just I can't back. You know, even
with Slovis back for me, it's Oklahoma or nothing in that game. I don't want BYU.
I know BYU had the crazy. People brought it up, the at-night stats, and they just got ripped. They're just a team. Yeah, I can't even look. So that was a quick pass. This game, though, Washington, Oregon State, I think could be really good. It's just so tough to play at Oregon State. But I think you might be right with Washington that could pull this out. You know, that this just might be their year in a difficult place. Because one thing is DJ. You here. I just worry turnovers for him and maybe some big spots. I think if he's clean, has a good game, I think this is just very close. You know, back forth, very good. You know, Oregon State at home, I kind of lean their way. The upset, you know, they're not a dog though, so it's a little different. And I gotta lean over. You know, I know there's some rain here. They're used to it. These two up there, I got to lean a little bit to the over. I think there's points.
Oh, you have to for a Washington game, for me, it's over or nothing. I mean, they've gone over in 3 straight, 75, 94, and 63 points in the last 3 Washington games. And the 63 was against Utah, who's not exactly a team that we think of as a big-time over team. So, and Oregon State offensively, we just saw them playing 62 against Stanford. DJU in that run game with Martinez have been pretty good lately. So, yeah, over or nothing for me as far as the total in this game. All right, next up, it is UCLA and USC. USC 6.5-point home favorite, 65 the total. I'll be on UCLA here for sure. You know, it's a rivalry game. I know UCLA was ugly for them last week on offense against Arizona State, losing 17-7. And yes, there are concerns about the health of their best 2 quarterbacks again. Of course, talking about Ethan Garbers and Dante Moore, although it looks like Dante Moore in particular upgraded to probable here for this game against USC, so they might have Moore back. Moore's had an up and down year. He really has. He's clearly, it's going to be a work in progress for him. Obviously highly recruited, but going to take time. It's going to be interesting to see where Chip Kelly goes. Schlee is questionable. Garber's questionable. Moore probable. And they're all banged up. That's the thing. They're all battling some kind of at least minor injury. So where UCLA goes with the quarterback spot is going to be interesting. But I know I don't want to lay 6.5 with USC. They showed a little fight last week against Oregon, but another loss. And now they're in that spot, which we talk about. Team that had a lot of lofty goals before the season. Championship, playoff, Pac-12 title. Can't get any of those now. You're 7-4. And I know you should be up to play UCLA, your in-city rival, but I don't trust them laying. I certainly don't trust their defense laying points, even after getting rid of the Grinch. So the Grinch stole the Christmas, and he also stole any kind of good defense that USC was capable of having as well as the DC there. So UCLA for me, if I'm betting this game. What do you think, C-Mac?
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think you're with UCLA or not, but it's all waiting on the quarterbacks like you're talking about. I like to see Garbers, but I don't doubt that. I don't know what we're going to get in this game because as long as you have that defense, I think UCLA is in it. And UCLA's defense, pretty much all year has been good. Two teams, one over team here in SC, one under team all year in UCLA. Can make some stops. So I think it's close. This game's been pretty close the last few years. You got to take the points to UCLA here.
All right, California, Stanford. We've got Cal 6.5-point road favorites, 58 the total. A lot of early love for Cal this week. The numbers climbed a little bit. Hard to argue with that. I mean, I like what I see from Cal right now, especially on offense. And look, they've played a very tough schedule. Utah, USC, Oregon, Washington State, Oregon State. That's been their last 5 opponents. Those are all – Washington State's probably the worst team of the bunch, and even they're okay. And then they played Oregon, USC, Utah, Oregon State. This is a huge step down in class for Cal. They should welcome this opportunity. And look, Stanford, every now and then they're capable, like the Colorado comeback, the shocker against Washington State. Even against Washington, they hung tough, but it's an erratic team. 1 week, they might show up, they put a scare in somebody, and then they're also capable of getting blown out 42-7 by UCLA and 62-17 last week by Oregon State. So there's a lot of volatility and variance right now in Stanford's results. That being said, I like Cal. Cal's a buy team, a bet-on team for me with what I've seen lately. So I think at less than 7, it's playable. I would lay it with Cal. If it gets above that, maybe not, but lean Cal for sure here. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if I can get there with Cal. I like how they're playing. It seems gettable game for them to win, so I don't blame you. I think you just look over. Cal still, to me, hasn't stopped anybody. Yep. They can score on offense. So Stanford's had some weird games, where they've just played a low score. They've had some crazy high-scoring games. But they should be able to score on this Cal team. You could even look, being on the road, Cal team total. So I'll be looking at that and just the full game over here.
Yeah, it's funny that we'd started to get really excited about Ashton Daniels at quarterback for Stanford, and then he has that kind of game last week against Oregon State. But he does show some signs of, capability, but obviously, look, still a work in progress. And what I believe, though, too, he also got a hand injury in that Oregon State game, and then Lamson came in, and he was just ineffective. So keep an eye on Ashton Daniels. That's probably another reason Cal's taking money. They're not sure Ashton Daniels is going to play, and there is a drop-off from Ashton Daniels to Justin Lamson at quarterback here for Stanford. And I like this Mendoza kid for Cal. Yeah, their defense is a little sketchy, but, I mean, they found a quarterback in that.
Fabano, he was in the chat earlier today. Did you see that?
I did.
Mendoza. Yeah. He's in the chat.
That's pretty great. Yeah. Thank you for watching the show. Just don't bet on the team or anybody. Yeah, just don't bet on
it. Came through for me, though. Cal in the over, even though that got close there at the end. But
it sure did, no doubt. Georgia State, LSU 31-point home favorite, 71 the total. You know what I'm betting in this game? It's an LSU over. Come on. It's 14 in a row for LSU that have gone over the total. Florida LSU last week, no sweat either, Connor. That was easy peasy with the over in the Florida LSU game. Jaden Daniels is something else, man. Throwing the ball, he's throwing deep balls, he's running the ball extremely well. He's an impressive core. This whole offense, Neighbors at receiver, I mean, they are excellent offense. Their defense is still, borderline dog shit. It's mediocre, and I'm being nice when I say it's mediocre, but they're not very good on defense. Look, the last time LSU had a big-time class advantage against Army, they shut Army down in that game, and Georgia State, they should have huge advantages, but I'm not laying 31 with their defense, especially in a non-conference game right after that game last week against Florida. I don't know if I'll take Georgia State, but I lean Georgia State. I just like the over more. Just if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I don't know if I trust Georgia State to stop LSU because, look, App State did a number on Georgia State last week, their defense. So over here for me. Connor, what do you think?
I do have to say, though, 70s here are starting to, now they're putting it up because, there's just one thing. It's cash. Over, Rover, LSU. Great offense, shit defense like you talked about. Georgia State has hit the shits. I don't know what's happened to this football team. They've gotten their ass whipped, and their defense has been horrible. I don't know how LSU doesn't at least get 50 here. Yeah. So, Georgia State get a couple touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns. I don't know. I'm going to wait on this. It's hard to go against, but, man, when you take it every week, it cashes. It's like you just got to keep doing it. But maybe this number is a little bit too high. In the Army game, this would stay under. I mean, does Georgia State get shut out? I don't think so. I think they could score here, at least a couple touchdowns. So, over. Somehow on over. Maybe their team's over.
You know what? I think Georgia State will do something offensively because LSU is not good on either side of the ball defensively against the pass or against the run, but they're worse against the run. And that's all Georgia State can do. Is run the football. They don't have much of a passing game. Granger is more of a running quarterback than throwing it. So I think Georgia State could probably get you 21. And if Georgia State gets 21, this game's probably going over the total because I do think LSU can hit 50 against this. Like 52-21, I could see it. Something like that. 52-21, that's 73. That gets you over the total. Look, I've cashed every recent LSU game over. I'm just going to ride it until I lose at this point. If it loses this week, okay, fine. That's okay. I've won a bunch in a row. We're still up. So that's the way I approach it. All right, next up, we've got and I hate that the SEC does this shit late in the season, these weird non-conference games like in the last couple of weeks of this. Another one here, UL Monroe and Ole Miss. We've got Ole Miss here, 37-point home favorite, 62 the total in this game. I'm telling you what, Monroe is not good. I'm not trying to say they are. But this team has showed some fight. I don't know if I trust Ole Miss after getting their ass kicked by Georgia last week to lay more than 5 touchdowns in this game. Now, I know it's been rough. They lost by 31 to Troy last week, 45-14, this Monroe team. They lost to Southern Miss. They lost to Arkansas State. I mean, maybe they do get absolutely crushed in this game. Jaya Wright, their quarterback, has been all over the map this year. He does have 10 touchdowns. You'd like to see the completion rate better, but he can move a little bit in the pocket as well, which is good to see. But, that defense is a worry against Jackson Dart and that Ole Miss offense. So this is probably another one I'd probably lean over. I just have a hard time laying this many points with Ole Miss. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I'm not going to lay anything in this game. This is a pass. Ole Miss beats them down. I don't know. That's up to you if you want to lay over about 7 touchdowns in this game or whatever, 5 touchdowns. So this is a pass. I don't know if Monroe can hang around. This is a bounce back beat up spot for Ole Miss after getting their ass whipped by Georgia.
All right, SMU and Memphis, a good one in the AAC here. We've got SMU 8-point road favorites, 66.5 being the total in this game. They got the cover. It was close, but they got the cover against North Texas last week, 45-21. So a lot of questions about whether Preston Stone would be good. He was in concussion protocol, but he ended up playing in that game. And SMU did what they usually do, and that's pile up points. Their offense is great. Jalen Knighton running the ball. Obviously a good receiving core with Moochie Dixon, RJ Maryland and company. Preston Stone, a great quarterback. They're going to be able to do whatever they want against Memphis. Is just a bad defense. Charlotte 40, and thank goodness I liked Charlotte plus the points against Memphis last week. But I thought for sure, I was going to say if Memphis scores 38 against Charlotte, Charlotte's not covering. Charlotte's offense, which has been dormant all year, puts up 44 last week against that Memphis defense. So that's not a good sign for Memphis. Now, I actually consider laying the points here with SMU. I just don't know where the stops are going to come from for Memphis. They've been getting worse on defense every week. 42 allowed to North Texas, 50 to South Florida, 38 to a Charlotte offense that hadn't moved the football at all much of the season. SMU and over. I'd be looking in those directions here in this game if I'm getting involved in it. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I was with Charlotte too. That was a late that I put. I'm like, yeah, if they could score. And look, they put 38, this Memphis team. Laying points, do not take them.
Yep.
They're just going to shit all over you. Take their team total if they're a favorite.
Yep.
Memphis. Now they're a dog. I don't know if they can get stops like you're talking about. And I think SMU, I don't love their defense, but they're better. They're better here than Memphis. Now, is it a full touchdown on the road and cover here? Maybe. This is a game I don't know if I bet because Memphis now is a dog, but that defense is awful. So yeah, this game was just a wait for me. I don't know if I want to jump on to Memphis and Hennigan and their whole team here, but maybe at home. I got to really look into this deeper.
I like the over more than SMU just because Memphis has played this team tough the last few years. There's been a lot of close games, a lot of battles, but man, this defense is just so bad and it's getting worse by the week for Memphis. That being said, Seth Hennigan, has been good at quarter. They can move the ball. They have scored points. There's no question. 4 straight overs for Memphis coming into this game. I definitely like
2-8-2 teams. They've just been horrible against the number, of course.
Yeah.
2-7-1. So.
Yeah. Normally, this is the one role I would consider backing Memphis, but I can't do it with their defense being this bad right now against this caliber of offense that SMU has. I just don't, even getting +8, I don't trust them fully to get many stops in this game. All right, next up, we've got Texas, Iowa State in the Big 12. It is Texas currently in this one. Let me just see here. I lost my spot. Here we go. Texas. There we go. Texas 7.5-point road favorites, 47.5 the total in this one. It's going to be interesting. Iowa State, playing a little bit better down the stretch here, recent games. Are they ready to battle Texas is the question, though, for them. Texas, obviously, still the only loss to Oklahoma. But you look at Texas all of a sudden, we're looking at a team that's just 1-4 ATS the last 5 games. Barely beat Houston. Didn't cover as favorites. They did win and cover against BYU, but BYU's had quarterback issues and bad defense, can't run the ball. Kansas State, they let K-State back into that game after having a big lead, and they survived late. TCU, they didn't cover there. TCU hung around. So there's not an easy team to lay more than a touchdown with on the road, even though I do think Texas is definitely the superior team talent-wise. No question about that. But do I trust Iowa State enough? I don't know. Yeah. I really don't, because I still think if this offense gets behind it, they have the come-from-behind nature to battle back. That being said, Texas has let teams back into games, and this has happened multiple times now. The Houston game, the K-State game, the TCU game. Texas just letting teams back into the game. That concerns me. I doubt I bet this game, but I would lean Iowa State, but I don't know if I trust their talent to hold up. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, this is just another struggle spot we talked about last week with TCU playing Iowa State, whether it's been going to their place or even at home the last few years. These games have been tight. And you know what the best thing for is these teams have solid defenses overall. And Iowa State, I think, has a pretty good defense. Look, they got slapped there to Kansas, I think, early before they woke up. They were just down 14-0, and they ended up losing that game. It couldn't come from behind. I think they're leaning this. This is why this has already come down. Babano. I think this was a bit higher. This has already come down to 7.5 over the touchdown. I lean the dog here. This is another, I think, going to be a tough game for Texas to go in there and win. Big bullseye, always with them. So give me the dog in Iowa State.
All right, next up, we've got Oklahoma State, Houston, staying in the Big 12. Oklahoma State 7-point road favorites, 59.5 being the total in this game. Now, I knew that was a tricky spot for Oklahoma State off the big rivalry win in Bedlam against Oklahoma, but I didn't think they would be that. Like, that was a no-show. That wasn't just we played bad. That wasn't just we were hungover. They didn't show up. They did not show up for that game
Yeah,
at all.
they got ripped in the
Oklahoma
bounce
State
house.
last week. They should be better here. But I remember an Oklahoma State season where they won Bedlam and they kind of no-showed after that. And then they kind of no-showed again, So does this become is this another no-show? Like if Oklahoma State shows up, they're better than Houston. They're significantly better than Houston. They can probably win this game by at least a touchdown. But I don't know. That did not leave a good feeling in my stomach watching the way Oklahoma State just laid down. They didn't have their heads in the game. They didn't have their hearts in the game. They ended up losing 45-3 last week. It was the defense was bad, the offense, and again, that's just didn't show up there in that game. All kinds of issues. It was a horrible game for Alan Bowman, his worst by far. 3 interceptions for him in that game. This is probably a pass for me. I don't know if I want to trust Oklahoma State, but I know I don't want Houston. Houston is just nope, not that coach, not that guy, Dana Holgerson. Do I want my money on his team? A team coached by that guy? It's just not going to happen at this point. What do you think here, Connor? Oklahoma State, Houston.
Yeah, it seems like Oklahoma State's gonna bounce back and play better. But I don't want them. That's for sure. Now, do I want Houston here, like you just talked about with this team? Not really. I think this game could be close. One thing, Oklahoma State, has gotten a little bit better as the year, but they've kind of gotten into shootouts and they got their ass whipped last week. I think Houston could move the ball on them. This defense, Joe, just hasn't been great all year long. I don't know if I take Houston, though. I'm leaning that way. I think you got to look at the over here.
Yeah.
Again, I think especially it's at least under 60, you take the over.
It's not like Houston's defense is very good. We just saw them give up 24 to Cincinnati, 41 to K-State. They've just been bad all year, pretty much on the defensive side of the football. So maybe you can play it over. Donovan Smith, he's got to stay away from the interceptions, though. He had 3 of them last week against Cincinnati in that loss. All right, next up, Baylor and TCU. TCU 13-point home favorites, 58.5 being the total in this game. I kind of want to take Baylor here. I do. TCU is playing for bowl eligibility. Baylor can't get bowl eligible right now. But because I just don't think TCU is one of those teams this year that do I trust them laying double digits? No. You go back and look, they've been double-digit favorites, Connor Mack, 3 times this year, 0-3 against the spread. Colorado didn't cover. Nicholls State didn't cover. And then West Virginia, they were 13.5-point favorites. They lost the game outright. So 2 of those 3 times they've been double-digit chalk this year, TCU, they've lost the game outright. That's not a team I'm laying 13 with. No way, no way, no way. But do I trust Baylor enough is the big question. That defense looks like they've quit, a little bit. Some of these games, they gave up 30 to Iowa State, 39 to Texas Tech, 35 to UCF, 59 last week against Kansas State. It's definitely not what you want to see. If you look at TCU, on offense, I'll give them credit, with Hoover. He's gotten a little bit better. Josh Hoover with the injury to, of course, Chandler Morris. He's been out for a few weeks. Hoover's had to take over. Maybe you play it over. I lean Baylor, though. TCU's been a dismal double-digit favorite this year, and I don't trust them in this price range. Simple as that. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah. Last week as a dog versus Texas, they play a solid game. I don't want them as double-digit favorites either. This game was that crazy, last year, that crazy thriller. You remember the Bama where they won by 1, TCU to get by. This is always kind of a good rivalry football game. Now, Baylor's defense is just awful. Can Shapen in his offense hang around? I want to look at this more. I haven't took Baylor all year. But I don't think so. I don't know. No, I don't think I've took them all year long.
I haven't taken them very often. Maybe once, but even that might be stretching it. Yep.
Yeah, I want to go into a little bit more. I definitely don't want TCU, so I'm going to look into a little more here with Baylor.
Yeah, when you see a team that's been double-digit favorites 3 times and they've lost the games outright, straight up 2 of those 3 times as double-digit favorites, yeah. The Colorado game and the West Virginia game, yeah, that tells me, yeah, I don't want TCU as this kind of favorite.
See if Hoover too mistakes, that's always key.
Yeah. If Baylor even has some heart, some competitive spirit in their DNA after that debacle against Kansas State last week, if they even have some shred of dignity and competitive effort here, they should cover this number against TCU on Saturday. But that's a big if. All right, Florida and Missouri. Missouri, 11-point home favorites, 58.5 the total in this game. Man, was that impressive. What impressed me about Missouri was their defense. We know with Brady Cook and company, that offense can move the ball. They've got an excellent receiving core as well. We know what they're capable of on that side of the football. Missouri, no question about that. Schrader running the ball like a bowling ball. Luther Burden, outstanding receiver. He'll be playing at the next level. But their defense stood up and had by far their best game of the season against Tennessee. Now, can they bring it again here at home against Florida? That's the question. Graham Mertz and the Gators, 0-3 straight up, 0-3 against the spread. Their last 3 games. How badly do they want to play in a bowl game? Because that's still on the table for Florida. They need one more win to get bowl eligibility, sitting at 5-5 right now. I could see Missouri blowing the doors off Florida, but I could also see after a win like that, maybe a little getting too full of ourselves if you're Missouri, and Florida just hangs around. And if they want to get this bowl eligibility, Florida, and are motivated to do so, they could hang around in this game. So I think it's a very high variance game for me. I would probably be a little bit more comfortable just staying with Florida games over. They've become like a mini LSU, Florida, in recent weeks, where every game has gone over the total. 6 straight Gators games have gone over the total. So I would probably stick to that rather than betting a side here. What do you think, Connor? Florida, Mizzou.
Yeah, they've played their best football at home, Missouri, but just a huge win. One thing that I've been impressed with is the defense. But man, the last 3, it's kept those games under for Missouri. For them, was it South Carolina? The Georgia game was pretty close, even though Georgia handled that. And then last week against Tennessee, Florida away from the swamp. I don't want, but is this a little bit too much? Can Mertz have some success? God, I don't want Graham Mertz, really. Yeah, I don't know. Even as a dog, one thing, if you had Florida last week, they were in covering that game the whole way. Urbano then didn't get the cover. That was pretty rough. We just had the over. I don't know if you had. I just had the over in the LSU game, but that was pretty rough if you had Florida getting 2 touchdowns last week.
Oh, bad. Yep.
So I don't know. I think this could be a little bit. Should it be? But a little bit of a sleepy spot here. But Mizzou is at home. They've been very good. I don't know. This may be a game I just don't get involved with.
All right, New Mexico State and Auburn, another one of these SEC teams playing a non-conference game in mid-November. We got a bunch of those this weekend. Auburn, 23-point home favorites, 48 the total in this game. I'll be honest, I am loving what I've seen. New Mexico State, I was on them again last week, getting 4.5 against Western Kentucky. They win the game outright. I mean, what a season this team is having. It's the defense has improved so much. Diego Pavia, the dual threat quarterback, they run the ball extremely well. They've got some playmakers at receiver. The O-line has improved significantly. 8-3 this team. Now, has their schedule been great? No. It's been pretty light. Liberty is probably the best team they've played. New Mexico State, New Mexico, Hawaii, FIU, Sam Houston, UTEP, Louisiana Tech, Middle Tennessee. Western Kentucky's a solid win, but they're down. They're not the same Western Kentucky they've been the last few years. But that being said, they've covered 6 straight and won 6 straight. New Mexico State, this is, for Auburn, this is one of those spots where they're just in the middle of conference play. A big win against Arkansas last week. They play Alabama in the Iron Bowl on deck after this. Are they really focused for 60 minutes here to put the boots to a pretty good New Mexico State team? I'm not so sure. I'd probably split it up, New Mexico State first half and full game. I do worry Auburn could wear them down over 4 quarters, but I've been riding New Mexico State, and I'm interested in doing so again here. What do you think here, Connor?
This one's tough. I like how Auburn's been playing. Talked about the huge win, just ran all over Arkansas. I think they had like 300 something yards on the ground there. But now as over 3 touchdowns, maybe they just have to run it here. How good is the defense against the run for New Mexico? Schedule here. They only give up 136. I don't think they'll be able to stop them. Peyton Thorne, 3 touchdown favorite. I don't love. It's just a pass for me right now.
All right, pass for Connor Mack in this one. All right, next up, UCF, Texas Tech. We've got Texas Tech 2.5-point home favorite, 60 the total. I definitely want to back Texas Tech here in this game. I'm interested in Texas Tech. I don't trust UCF on the road. They just got the mother of all bad spots to fall into their lap for Oklahoma State last week. I mean, yeah, I give credit to them. They played a great game, but a lot of that was just a no-show from Oklahoma State last week. So I'm still not ready to, and that was at the bounce house too. I'm not ready to trust UCF on the road. The question here with Texas Tech is who's going to be at quarterback? Is Baron Morton going to be good to go? It looks like he is. So that's a positive. At less than a field goal, it's Tech for me. I don't trust UCF on the road. What do you think here, Con?
Yeah, I like Tech last week and all the success that they had. The over obviously was shot as soon as Bean was out, so I lost that. But the 4 points, I thought they could hang around in that game, and they ended up winning it. Just away from the bounce house after the big win, I can't look UCF's way. This probably could be a good game. I think there's plenty of points. Now this one, as long as he's in, Morton's in, I lean over here, Bavano, because USC, their defense has not been great on the road. So I like the over. I like Texas Tech as well.
Yeah, I agree. Over in Texas Tech, interested in both here in this one. All right, Wake Forest and Notre Dame. Notre Dame 24.5-point home favorites, 47.5 the total. I'm not a big proponent of laying ever this kind of number with Notre Dame, but I'm not sure I can back Wake. Wake is not awake. Wake is asleep. They should call them Sleep Forest. They're not Wake Forest right now. They're Sleep Forest, as in fast asleep, as in bad, as in a really porous team at the moment. 4-6 now on the year. Got absolutely destroyed by NC State last week, 26-6. The only reason they covered against Duke is Duke had Beelan at quarterback. He stunk. They got blown out by Florida State. They won a game they shouldn't have against a bad Pitt team. They got blown out by Virginia Tech, blown out by Georgia Tech. I mean, I don't trust Wake and their quarterback situation. And do you think Sam Hardman is going to be up for this game, his old team? I should think so. He'd want to beat Wake Forest here. What doesn't matter if it's been Mitch Griffiths and the other guy wasn't much better, Michael Kern at quarterback for Wake Forest. And Notre Dame's defense is good enough to completely shut this group down. Maybe a Wake Forest team total under. Maybe something to consider in this game. That might be the best way to go about it. It's not like Notre Dame has a big look ahead. Stanford is the final game on their schedule next week. So, and this is their final home game. So I think it's empty the tank. I think it's blowout city. In my opinion, I'm not sure I'll lay 24.5, but I could only look at the Fighting Irish here. What do you think, Connor?
That's what I put down last night, Bavano, on this. Like maybe look Notre Dame team total over, and then Wake Forest team total under. I mean, can this team get more than 2 touchdowns? I don't think so. It's tough to watch them. This seems like a great spot for Notre Dame. Healthy, fresh for a good beat down. Yeah, laying it though, it's been trouble at times, over 3 touchdowns, but I think you just stick to that, the team totals in this game.
Yeah, I think
first half, I guess, if you want to look.
Yep.
There, I don't know. The Wake quarterback situation's awful. I mean, Kern didn't look any better. It was ugly to see, in that game.
Yeah, it sure was. It was rough. No question about that. And I worry about that this week going on the road against Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, for the most part, I think still has a very good – and when they face an offense that's just not very good, they can completely shut it down. Like Navy, like Central Michigan, like Pittsburgh when they faced Pitt a couple weeks ago, 58-7.
Their numbers are great, Havana. I think that their defense has been pretty good all year long.
Yeah, this is definitely blowout city for me here. Notre Dame or nothing in this game. And like I say, the team total over for Notre Dame, the team total under for Wake Forest might be a good way to go about it as well. All right, we got just 2 games left, and this one's a good one in the Mountain West. The team in Connor's backyard, the UNLV Rebels, they just keep on impressing, taking on the Air Force Falcons. Air Force rather, a 3-point home favorite, 47 the total. The money's come in on UNLV. This opened 4, it's down to 3. People not impressed with Air Force the last couple weeks, and I can't say I blame them. I mean, they got drilled by Army. That was a stunner. What were they, 18-point favorite? They lost the game outright to Army a couple weeks ago, and then I saw that offense struggle to move the football on the island against Hawaii last week, and they didn't
Insane.
Even come close. Yeah.
Hawaii defense like that? Yeah. What the? Yeah.
That was surprising. That was, and that's now 2 weeks in a row. This looked like an offense with Larrier at quarterback, the option attack. couldn't be stopped. And suddenly they play Army and Hawaii, and they've scored 16 points, in the last 2 games combined. And 0-2 straight up, 0-2 against the spread, losing outright as 20.5-point favorites to Hawaii, and then to 18-point favorites before that to Army. I got to look UNLV. I got in on some UNLV here. All you've done with UNLV this year, if you back them, is cash tickets. Barry Odom, one of the great coaching jobs in all of college football this year. 8-2 straight up, 9-1 against the spread. They found Maava, their young quarterback who keeps getting better. Their defense at times has been shaky, but more often than not, this has been a much improved UNLV defense. That's 2 weeks in a row. They shut down New Mexico and Wyoming in each of their last 2 wins. Really, the only teams they've given up big points to are Vanderbilt out of the SEC and Fresno, who actually have a pretty good offense. They played good defense outside of that this year, UNLV. The key is the run defense. How do they do against the run? And UNLV's run defense has been very good. 124 rushing yards per game allowed, just 3.7 yards per carry allowed. That's 35th in the country. Yards per carry allowed with their run defense. That's what you want to see when you're playing Air Force. So, yeah, UNLV for me. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I was going to hit on Rebels. Talk of the town here in Vegas, Babano. I haven't seen it at all. I've been here my whole life, basically. I know they had one good year, maybe even 2, when Robinson was the coach. But Barry Odom, he's just done a hell of a job. What's gone on with Air Force? This is, though, someone just put, there's a lot on their plate. They have really slipped up the last few years, Babano, right now, kind of in November. They've gotten to these great starts.
100%.
Yeah. Yep. And they just hit a wall a little bit. Yeah, you touched on it, because that's what I wanted to hit on. Air Force, we know, 275 on the ground, and UNLV's been pretty good. It's been their secondary I've talked about. That's a little bit leaky. Air Force doesn't throw it. Yeah, get the hook, I think. I think this is a close one. And I think UNLV and Barry Odom has these guys, because this is a game that they've had trouble with. Air Force has kind of owned them a little bit, as bad as UNLV's been the past few years. So I think it's close. I think you just got the way Air Force has looked. This is a game you take UNLV. Just been money too. 9-1, ATS this year. I don't want to be jumping off.
All right, yeah, I agree. It's this year. All they've done is go 8-2 straight up, 9-1 against the spread this year. I think they are the single best point spread team in college football this year. UNLV. There's
the whole running here. The weather. One thing with UNLV, that game got out last week and then stalled. They've been pretty good to the over. I'm going to look at the total more. It's nice weather, though. The wind, 10 miles an hour, 57 degrees. I'm going to look at the total. I don't know if I mess with it. But, yeah, I think if you get the hook, take the Rebels.
All right, good stuff. All right, final game now of this edition of Hitting the Books. Big Ten. It's Nebraska and Wisconsin. Wisconsin 6-point home favorites, 37 being the total in this game. This one I'm probably not going to do much with. I'm pretty much out on Nebraska now. The offense is just inept. That's why they've lost the last 2 games. I feel bad for their defense. The defense is competing every week. Pretty solid, actually, defense. But Harburg got benched, and now they went back to Jeff Sims last week against Maryland. And to be honest, it wasn't that much better. 8 for 13, and he threw 2 interceptions. So Matt Rule has no quarterback right now that he can count on at this point in time. Now, Wisconsin's no great shakes right now. They're banged up football team. Their offense is struggling. Braden Locke hasn't been the answer for them. They've been held to 14 or less in 3 straight games. This is under City, and I know the total is 37, but I could not look over the total in this game with these 2 offenses right now. That being said, Mordecai we'll have to see here in this one. I believe he actually did. Yeah, he did come back in the Northwestern game for Wisconsin. He did play that game last week. Actually didn't play that bad, but unfortunately, a lot of points left on the board. There were some turnovers, missed opportunities there for Wisconsin in that loss to Northwestern. You got to think he's going to be a little sharper. His second start now back from injury. So I'd lean Wisconsin, but I don't know if I'm going to lay it with them. What do you think, Connor?
I think you just take the under in this game. Both teams are banged up. Mordecai, it didn't matter. I had, of course, I had Northwestern, some money line. I wish I had a little bit more on the money line. I haven't trusted this Wisconsin team at all, and even at home. Like, they should get this game. One thing, though, Harburg out with the ankle, questionable. It's tough with Sims here, like, to take Nebraska, because I kind of would lean to the points with them if Harburg was in, because their defense has been pretty good all year long. Man, this seems like it's just a low-scoring, close game. And you hit on it. Both teams, just the injury bug has just hit both of them
Triple
bad.
down.
Yeah. I mean, and to offenses that aren't good, and then your top wideouts and running backs, quarterbacks are going out, that's just like, holy shit. That is not good. So I like the under here. As long as you get under 37, I think, right there, it's good.
Yeah, hard to trust either offense right now, certainly when it comes to these two teams. Great stuff. That is this edition of Hitting the Books. We appreciate everyone joining us. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button if you haven't done so already. We appreciate it very much. No question about that. And Jose Bouquet behind the scenes doing a great job producing things. We've only got a few shows left, but we'll be back, of course, next week for another edition of Hitting the Books. It's Thanksgiving week, so there'll be a lot of Friday games next week on the show. So looking forward to another edition next week. Conor, final thoughts, and then we'll wrap it up.
No, another great week. College football has been very good the last month. We got, hit the chat here. Steve G, Robert Franklin, Nunya. Do you want to hit on it? But Ben, someone asked for college basketball. Our guy Nunya. Do you want to hit anything real quick?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Michigan and St. John's is a great game tonight. I'm going to buy into St. John's being ready. I'm not sold on Michigan yet. I'm not. And I know they look good against Asheville, and Asheville's a pretty good team. They got Pember. It's a great low post player, and it's obviously a team that got to the tournament last year, but still, they got to show on the road they can get the job done. St. John's needs to improve defensively. That first game they had there, a little leaky against Stony Brook on the defensive end of the court. But I lean St. John's there. It's getting up to 2.5, 3, but I think they can win that game. A couple others I like tonight. I like few good overs I like. I like Central Michigan, Florida State over. There should be a lot of points there. I do like the Miami game over, but man, everybody else does too, because that total's like 165 now with FIU and Miami. I could make a case for that going over the total. What else do I like? I like Florida Gulf Coast as a dog once again. I cashed with them against Indiana last week. That Florida Gulf Coast team, Pat Chambers is the coach there, coached at Penn State for many years. I think Florida Gulf Coast could be live in that game against Pittsburgh. I was impressed with the way they played against Indiana. Those are the main ones. There's a few other totals, but they've all moved, man. Like there's a few other overs, but you're getting shit numbers now. They've all moved. I like North Florida over. That's moved 4 points. I like Southern and Arizona over. Fuck, that's moved 6 points. 157 to 163. Long Island Pepperdine. I like that over. 156.5 to 159.5. So it's moved. So that's the unfortunate part. You're getting the worst of the number now.
Yeah, there's a bunch of numbers that have moved. I have to say, this has moved, Babano. I've seen Cal already lose to Pacific. I had them. They went to 13. At 13, I'll take some Bakersfield against them. This Cal basketball team is not very good. I think it's stretched out too much there at 13 in that game. And I agree with you there, Florida Gulf Coast. I think if you got 10-2, there's a lot of 9.5s and stuff, but I think they can hang around as well.
Yeah, keep in mind too, big pace change in Cal this year, and I've liked some overs
so far. Yes,
yeah. Mark Madsen's the new head coach. Remember, there's not Mark Fox anymore, where it was a snail pace and a bad offense and half court. No, they're pushing tempo now, and you can capitalize because they're still putting the Cal totals in like the 130s for the most part. So that total's been bet up. I agree. I mean, take advantage of that stuff. Teams changing their spots, going from slow to fast, or you can bet unders with teams going from fast pace to slow pace that slow it down. Look at South Carolina, for example. Frank Martin, they played super fast, and now they got a new coach there, and now they're playing a lot slower. South Carolina this year. So keep that in mind. Those are things to look for in college basketball. Anyway, we got to go. We'd be here forever if we keep going, but we appreciate it very much. Shout out to everyone in the chat. For Conor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great week. Enjoy the college football action, and we will be back next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, for another edition of Hitting the Books right here on Pub Sports Radio. Until then, class dismissed.